Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Wonderful people like you who enjoy this show send pledges in the form of super chats, super stickers, super thanks, PayPal, or Cash App. Instructions for how to help are in the description. You can also join our Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month you can get extra content. Patreon supporters get a backstage pass, early access to all our production videos before they are distributed publicly, Stephen Cambion's music, private writings, a monthly show journal, and more. You can also become a YouTube channel member for $5 a month. A YouTube membership includes all of the Patreon benefits, plus a special members badge, priority reply to video comments, and the live chat, plus a monthly members-only video. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, for supporting Truth Seekers. Thank you for your generosity and support.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. We are back and on track for another night of the UFO circus. And the circus has really ran out of town this week. That's what I would say. It's been a tough week for the world of UFOs and aliens, especially. It has especially been a tough week for the world of alien and UFO grifters and scammers who are all in full-on panic mode, because this week has been a strange week, because all in the same week we got the complete and total nothing burger that was the Senate UFO hearing. And by the way, I see that some UFO scammers are still milking it, regardless of the fact that it was a nothing burger, or they're going to pretend that they were saying it was going to be a nothing burger before the hearing when in fact they were hyping it. I'm aware of at least a few of these UFO scammer clowns that have done, Grifton did 3 shows, right? 3 shows on a 1-hour hearing. How do you do 6 hours of this super chat shuffle, right? Standing there like a monkey. Dance like a monkey for those super chats, you dummy, right? How do you do 6 hours talking about a 1-hour hearing in which almost nothing was important? I think the important bits were a 10-second clip where the director of Aero said there's absolutely no evidence of alien or off-world technology, and there is no evidence that any UFOs defy the laws of physics, which is in direct which is a big problem for all the UFO scammers who have been using that talking point. These things defy the laws of physics. Well, not according to science, they don't. And not according to the head of the government's investigation into these things. Who, by the way, has been characterized as a UFO wackadoo himself. So if anybody's going to jump on that, if it's true, it would be a fellow wackadoo. But we've got clowns out there doing 3 or more shows about a 1-hour hearing, right? And that should give you some indication of how little there is actually going on. And coupled to that is the fact that it's spring now in most of, North America. So people are going outside. They're not sitting in their house going down UFO rabbit holes. So certainly the viewership is off for almost everyone. People are going outside, and I highly encourage you to do that, but not until after my broadcast, of course. But the fact that some grifters are doing 2 or 3 shows about a 1-hour hearing in which almost nothing was said tells you everything about how this con works. It's a scam. It's a con, right? Just be there and dance for those super chats. And by the way, we're going to be revisiting my own policy about that. Maybe we'll just start reading them at the end. I feel very distracted by stopping the show to read each of them, but we'll figure out a proper balance. You also may have noticed that I played our bumper about supporting the show in the beginning of the show, and that is because I often forget to play those bumpers. So we'll play one in the beginning of the show, maybe one at the end of the show. That means, I'll get them in just to remind people that we are a viewer-supported show. And I'm happy and proud to announce that Truthseekers has never been caught lying to their audience, unlike Goof On and Third Phase of Moon and Linda Moulton Howe and Lou Elizondo and Nick Pope and George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, and virtually everyone that covers these topics has been caught lying to their audiences or to the public in general. We haven't. We have not sold out. We have not sold our souls. We have not run hoaxes or supported hoaxers like a certain grifty super chat shuffler. We just don't do that here. But along with the fact that we don't do that comes the tax, right? First of all, we cannot make money by doing the UFO circle jerk. If you're new to the show, the UFO circle jerk is when these clowns that run shows or podcasts sit there and softball people and pretend that they're not interviewing a lying, scamming, con artist grifter, right? That's how this works. I am losing my patience for so much of this that, sometimes I say, well, I should say that a little more diplomatically, right? No, the diplomacy is out the window because, this unwritten rule that anybody that covers these subjects is not allowed to talk about the scams being run, the grifts being grifted, and the whole, just make up fake whistleblowers, sell fake stories. The fact that there's this unwritten rule that I'm supposed to hold my tongue and, get along. I'm not here to get along with people who are lying to other people. I'm not here to be diplomatic with people who are selling 100% provably fake stories. Like Ross Coulthart, who now is claiming some sort of cover-up because none of the crap that he talked about, like, crash retrieval whistleblowers, was talked about in this Senate hearing. That's because Ross Coulthart's sources are fake. They're from his land of imagination. Hey, Ross Coulthart, name your goddamn sources or get out of here. Go scam some other subculture or community. Get out of here with your goddamn metal shavings, alien metal shavings it was a goddamn ball bearing, you dummy. Right? You promised, quote, conclusive proof of alien technology, all confirmed by this man. Then you cut to a shot of Michio Kaku. There was no alien technology. And Michio Kaku didn't confirm anything. Ross Coulthart lied to everyone to sell a story. But this isn't the first time. He's a disgraced journalist who essentially got laid off or fired from his job on 60 Minutes Australia. And why did that happen? I believe it happened because he got caught selling another provably fake story, not in the genre of UFOs, but in the genre of all the British lawmakers are pedos, right? And he used fake sources, wackadoo, mentally ill people, right, for sources, and he got caught selling a 100% provably fake story. Then he comes into the UFO community with a book full of anonymous sources, right? Then he gets caught selling another 100% provably fake story about alien technology confirmed by Michio Kaku, right? And by the way, Michio Kaku still has not responded. I emailed him at his job at the university he works at. 3 times. I tweeted at him 3 times. I want to know how Michio Kaku feels knowing that Ross Coulthart used him to scam everyone with a clickbait garbage story that was 100% fake, manipulated, deceptive. So deceptive, they took it off their YouTube channel. They could lose their entire YouTube channel for doing something like that. They used deceptive practices to get people in the promos, to get people to click on the video so they can make lots of money selling 100% provably fake story. So, off in the weeds again, but my point is, I'm not here to be nice to people like Ross Coulthart. And here's another thing. If you're a fan of one of these scammers, don't email me. This is not the place for you. You want to go listen to fairy tales, do it somewhere else, pal. Don't email me your complaints. Don't tell me he's an award-winning journalist. Guess what? Good journalists don't use fake stories and don't do clickbait garbage pieces. The guy got fired or laid off or whatever from a real journalism job, and he decided he would come into the UFO community because these stupid people are easy to scam with clickbait fake stories, I guess. Not so easy when somebody like me is going to be the watchdog and report on this. So we're giving you the truth, but we're giving you the cold, hard, ugly truth. And if you don't like it, don't email me. Go give money to these people that are lying to you every time they put out a story. To these people with their fake sources and their insiders. And, oh, there's meetings going on in top secret skiffs. Okay, who's in the meetings? Oh, I can't tell you. It's an anonymous source. Sure it is. Sure it is. An anonymous source might as well be from the goddamn land of make-believe. I am tired of this. And isn't it interesting that when I took a turn and just said, I'm going after some of these scammers lying to everybody, and I'm going to tell everybody the truth about this, I thought that there would be some change, right? The only changes that have happened as a result of our show and our constant coverage of the constant scam that is the UFO circus is this. Some of these grifters have had to work a little bit harder to come up with, fake stories. They can't be quite so obvious as they used to be or easy to catch. I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with this whole thing. I'm disgusted with idiots emailing me, arguing with me. We present factual evidence from on-the-record real sources, right? If you want to live in a land of make-believe where anonymous sources are telling a disgraced journalist who got let go from his real job because he put out a completely fake, sensationalized story about the British government all being pedophiles, congratulations. Don't email me. I don't care what you think. You must be an idiot to believe that clown. And I'm not reading any more of this nasty comments I don't care. I don't care. We're just going to keep doing what we do. And if you don't like it, go listen to Fairy Tale Hour with George Knapp or Jeremy Corbell or Ross Coulthart or Linda Moulton Howe or Nick Pope or any of these other, or Third Phase of Fake, right? Just go do that. Live in your delusional bubble. Live in the land of make-believe if you like to. I live in the real world, and I require things like evidence, on-the-record sources, data to support claims. Do you know how many UFO grifters have said UFOs defy the laws of physics? Where is the data? Where is the evidence? Where is the proof? It doesn't exist. Because these people live in the land of make-believe, and I don't. And if I can give anyone any advice, it would be that you can live in a land of make-believe. You can put your blinders on. Oh, don't watch Steve Campion. I don't want to know who's a scammer. Oh, my God, they're all scammers. Yes! 99.9% of these people pushing alien crap are scammers. There, I said it. And I won't take it back. because there is ample and supportive evidence to prove that what I am saying is true. And meanwhile, when you ask those people for evidence, they've got a bunch of anonymous sources. And trust me, bro, I'm sick of it. I'm just sick of it. And I keep saying this, but we're going to start talking about other topics because I can't do this. What am I going to do? Every night, we're just here going, this person's lying to you, and this person's lying to you, and this person's misleading you, and this person's fudging the data to sell a story, and this person is using a fake source to sell a story, right? It's a goddamn circus full of clowns. And I don't want to become one of them, right? We do very good investigative journalism work here sometimes. And lately I've been thinking, I really should be looking into cold murder cases or something that may have some real societal benefit, right? Something, because the perfect example of all of this is Linda Moulton Hale. We showed with evidence, incontrovertible proof and evidence, that Linda Moulton Hale got caught selling at least 2 fake stories, probably a hell of a lot more. But those 2 stories with the complete and totally fake alien pictures that she pushed as real pictures of aliens. She's caught with her pants down. Oh, that's a disgusting thought. Bad analogy. Caught red-handed selling completely and totally fake stories. She's booked at Contact in the Desert. Why would Contact in the Desert want to book somebody that got caught selling 100% provably fake stories twice? I've said it before. I'll say it again. It's because stupid people want to go see her. And even stupider people want to go pay her $120 for her autograph, right? Do you want an autograph from Linda Moulton Hale? That'll be $120. And let's not forget the VIP meet and greet that could be up to several $1,000s, where you get to hang out with your favorite UFO scammer for 10 minutes. Great, a real value. No, this thing has become so ridiculous, and these people are put on pedestals and worshipped like they're giving you, and by the way, I would be okay with all of these people making huge amounts of money and being put on pedestals and even some hero worship if they were giving us real and accurate information like they claim to be. But they're just not. They're just not. They're not worthy of the accolades. They're not worthy of making millions of dollars for selling garbage, and they're certainly not worthy of worship. They should be mocked mercilessly until they leave. Everyone here should say, you sell garbage, go sell garbage to somewhere else. Don't do it here. If we're clicking on something because it's supposed to be a true story or a documentary, then we want the truth, and we want documentary style investigative journalism and evidence. We don't want some idiot telling stories with no backup other than trust me, dude, and somebody told me, and my secret government insider sources, which I never name. It's all a game, and it's all about the cash. Which brings me to the subject of tonight's show, honestly. And I decided to do a double header tonight because there's so much going on, busting the world of UFO scammers this week. And, I got to say, as frustrated and angry as I get with the whole game of this UFO circus, occasionally some things happen. And I get in a slightly better mood. And this week I'm in a slightly better mood because a few great things happened. For those unaware, the UFO community or subculture, whatever you want to call it, there's some pillars of the UFO mythology, let's call it. And 2 of those pillars are Skinwalker Ranch and the Bob Lazar story. Interestingly, George Knapp has sold both of those stories, right? And we know how George Knapp loves to play fast and loose with facts, and he does the lie by omission. Oh, this former government scientist whistleblower. Well, first of all, George Knapp, you lie to everybody. Bob Lazar was never a scientist, and there's no evidence that he ever worked for the government. You have zero. So George Knapp has also been involved in selling books and material on the Skinwalker Ranch, and through his idiot, what do you call that? Underling. Yeah, through his idiot underling, Jeremy Corbell, they sold a Skinwalker documentary based on his book full of lies. So we've got a book full of super spooky stories from George Knapp, which he, in the beginning of the book, Stephen Greenstreet caught this, not me, by the way, all credit to him. In the beginning of George Knapp's book, he claims that all the stuff in the book is based on a mountain of evidence. And then on Joe Rogan asked him, is there any evidence? Well, no, we don't. Not if you want. No, not like real evidence, not like physical evidence, right? So George Knapp has made perhaps millions of dollars selling the Skinwalker scam, and he has no evidence. He admitted as much. So this is kind of where we've been at, is that people are making millions of dollars selling stories that they claim are true, and all they've got is the story. They don't have evidence to support the story. It's really ridiculous. And the profiteering is evident. George Knapp then goes on to get Jeremy Corbell, I guess, to sell a documentary based on his book full of the same spooky stories. And Jeremy Corbell does an equally piss poor job at providing a single shred of evidence, right? Oh, paranormal hotspot, but we don't have any data to share. We got a lot of spooky stories, though. If you want some spooky stories, you want to hear about werewolves and shapeshifters and predators and dogs that smoke cigarettes? Yeah, it's Skinwalker Ranch. It's awesome. So George Knapp has been involved in selling both the Bob Lazar fraud scam and the Skinwalker scam. And, I just wanted to say to George Knapp, I once liked and respected you, maybe even admired you and wanted to emulate you before I knew that you sold garbage for a living, right? I just didn't. When I was younger, I would just watch you and think, wow, this guy's really getting to the truth. No, you're not. He's manufacturing false truth. That's what George Knapp does. He manufactures fake true stories. And by the way, not for nothing, but George Knapp is getting a little older now. So, the road to redemption for you, George Knapp, is getting shorter and shorter. Are you going to go to your grave at peace, going, I did a great job dedicating decades of my life to selling completely and totally fake stories where I had to massage everything, I had to lie by omission and not tell people about all the evidence that the stories that I was making millions selling were completely and totally fake, right? This is what you've dedicated your life to, George Knapp. And, at some point we all meet our maker, and George Knapp is going to have to go to his maker. And I truly believe that at the end of our lives, when we meet our maker, there's a talk, and the divine supreme being will say, I gave you incredible talents. What did you do with them? What did you do? Everybody's given gifts. And despite what I think about him, George Knapp he's been given great gifts by God as a good communicator, maybe a good investigator, but not really if he leaves out half the story. And that's how George Knapp sells his stories. He has to leave out the whole half of the story that shoots the story to crap as a fake garbage story, right? But God gave him gifts as a communicator. He's a good talker, right? He's charismatic. And when he meets his maker, the maker is going to ask him, what did you do with the talents I have given you? And George Knapp is going to have to say, I sold fake stories to stupid people with those gifts I was given, God. And maybe, just maybe, someday George Knapp may be judged for that, right? The time for George Knapp to come clean on Bob Lazar and address the overwhelming evidence that Bob Lazar was a convicted pimp, fraud, liar, that never was a scientist, never stepped foot on Area 51 and more, is closing. And by the way, I wish him a long and healthy, happy life. I'm not saying he's going to kick the bucket any day now, but, we're all mortal. So at some point, George Knapp's going to meet his maker, and he's going to have to explain why he spent a lifetime selling fake stories for profit when he could have done, certainly better things. And by the way, I have seen some investigative journalism pieces that George Knapp did on the Las Vegas mob and other things that I thought were incredibly well done. So he has the capability to do good work, but good work is hard. You ever notice that? Work when you're finished, you could be proud of for the rest of your life. Those things are so difficult to do. They take time and energy and passion and dedication and a great deal of perseverance. It's much easier to just sell fake stories to stupid people and make millions of dollars. I'm learning that. We do the hard work here. And sometimes I say, why are we doing this? Some idiot with a goddamn flashlight and somebody telling a story about aliens just made a huge ton of money. By the way, we're going to cover that as well soon. And so Skinwalker and Bob Lazar both got huge hits because I have been screaming from the rafters for ages now that both of those stories are completely and totally fake. But the problem is, and we've talked about this before, the problem is something I call the bullhorn syndrome. The guy with the bigger bullhorn wins, and I can't do anything about that. So what happens is the person who has the bigger bullhorn wins. It doesn't matter if we have facts, evidence, all kinds of backup to show those people lied. If the liar has 100 times bigger bullhorn than you, they win. And I have been both disappointed, ashamed, and quite honestly, depressed by our lack of ability to change anything. Because I can scream it from the rooftops, but if enough people don't get the message and the liars put their message out to 100 times more people than I can, we just don't have any effect. It doesn't take hold. People don't go, oh, they only gave us half the Bob Lazar story. They lied about the other half and kept that part of the evidence from us so we wouldn't know the story was fake. But luckily, thank God, I'm so thankful for this. Like I said, once in a while, no matter how discouraged I get, something puts me in a better mood. So this week we had two things that put me in a better mood. The first was Stephen Greenstreet's piece on Skinwalker Ranch. It just blew the whole Skinwalker story out of the water. And for those that don't know, the Skinwalker Ranch is all about money. The United States government wasted $22 million investigating Skinwalker Ranch. And it's interesting that our government actually gave $22 million to investigate Skinwalker Ranch to the guy who owned the ranch. And I'm still trying to figure out what we got for $22 million. Near as I can tell, we got a few hundred reports of spooky stuff. That's it. That's what we got for our $22 million. And I would like to know, and I've got a lot of questions for the government, but they won't return my calls. I was happy to see also, I hate to be happy for somebody's misfortune, but in Stephen Greenstreet's piece, he talked about calling the government for weeks and weeks and weeks and months, trying to get very simple answers. And I thought it was only me that got ignored, but apparently, if you're asking inconvenient questions that the government doesn't want to answer, they just ignore you. That's what they do. But it is what it is. So we taxpayers paid $22 million before the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch television show ever even started the government had already wasted $22 million on Skinwalker, and all we got was some spooky reports of nonsense, orbs and UFOs, and we didn't get any data, none, not a single shred, nothing. No, to my knowledge, we don't have films, we don't have pictures, we don't have sensor data, we have nothing, nothing. We've got somebody sitting at the ranch going, yeah, I saw some orbs. Let's write it in a report, send it to Bigelow. That's what we got for our $22 million, near as I can tell. Then, after Bigelow had milked every penny of that $22 million, God knows where it went. I'd love to know, how do you spend $22 million investigating a ranch? How long does it take to spend $22 million investigating a ranch? Who knows? Who knows? But Brandon Fugel comes along after Bigelow had sucked every penny he could. This is my speculation, but I'm entitled to it. I believe that Bigelow figured out that nothing was happening there after a while. And there was even some anecdotal evidence that he said that. There's just been a lack of activity at the ranch. You know, there's no activity at the ranch. So he decides to sell it. And he sells it to Brandon Fugel, who then turns it into an entertainment empire, right? There's TV shows, there's conventions, there's websites, there's members-only access where you get extra stupid, spooky stories and no evidence, right? Just like you do on a television show. Extra spooky stories, though, behind the paywall. And by the way, who does Brandon Fugel have on his website advertising that? Christina Gomer, who works with Jimmy Church and the biggest UFO scammers on planet Earth. Great job, Brandon Fugel. Really credible having a girl that works with all those UFO scammers help you advertise, get behind our paywall, right? And by the way, just in the sense of transparency, I once asked Brandon Fugel some questions on Twitter and I got blocked. And I just want to say, Brandon Fugel, you're a pussy. You are a pussy, bro. You are a pussy. If you are so sure that you've got a paranormal hotspot and there's all these paranormal things going on, you can't. And by the way, my questions were respectful. He had to block me on Twitter. That's how weak his evidence is. That's how piss poor, sad his so-called evidence is. If your evidence is so piss poor, so weak, so ridiculously worthy of mockery that you have to block respectful journalists on Twitter who are asking you a few questions, then you are a pussy. I'm not pulling punches anymore. Brandon Fugel is a pussy. All right, I said it enough. I made my point, and let's move on. And by the way, Brandon Fugel, you're always free to unblock me, and you're free to come here and we'll have a respectful conversation. And I promise I won't call you that even one time. I don't understand. If you've got all this evidence, Brandon Fugel, why can't anybody ask you questions? Or you get butthurt and block them on Twitter. You know, I feel like holding up a doll, right? Like, show me on this doll where Stephen Campion hurt you on the internet, Brandon Fugel. It's ridiculous. You got to block me because I asked questions? Oh, my God. And by the way, I don't regret asking the questions that I asked. And, if he wants to block me, good for him. But that won't change my coverage of him. In fact, that will make my coverage of him more important to me. You want to block me on Twitter? Maybe, just maybe, Mr. Fugel, we'll start digging even deeper than we've dug before, right? And let's talk about the fact that apparently the stars of Brandon Fugel's Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, by the way, I'll give you a spoiler alert. The secret of Skinwalker Ranch it's about the money. That's the secret. The secret of Skinwalker Ranch is we're here to suck every dollar we can out of this thing. That's the secret. Okay, so spoilers. But interestingly, the so-called stars of the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch television show recently got in some hot water because Jack Brewer, who, by the way, is a great researcher, journalist. He runs Expanded Frontiers, and now Erica Lukes is affiliated with him now, working with him. He does great investigative journalism work, and he uncovered that Skinwalker cast members received $175,000 in county economic development consulting fees. And I think this is just a great story. Stephen Greenstreet mentioned it, but he kind of glossed over it. I'm sure because, there's only so much time he had. But I'm going to share some of Jack Brewer's work. Shout out to Jack Brewer and Erica Lukes. They're doing excellent work uncovering the Skinwalker scam. So the stars of the Skinwalker scam, I mean, the secret of the Skinwalker scam, I mean, whatever. The Skinwalker scammers are getting consulting contracts with local government officials. The contract obtained from Duchesne County rather questionably states the agreement is specifically entered into between Colliers International and Duchesne County. The contract is signed by Winterton, who is listed as the managing director of Intermountain Economic Consulting. And I just would like to ask, for the purpose of asking, Thomas Winterton is the so-called superintendent of Skinwalker Ranch. And by the way, he took a shot at me on Twitter too. He's also a pussy. Thomas Winterton, you're a pussy too. Okay. So Thomas Winterton is the superintendent of Skinwalker Ranch. Now, I don't know what that even means. So what I did is I looked it up. I looked up the definition. Listen, if you're not sure what something means, look it up. A person who manages or superintends an organization or activity. A high-ranking official, especially the head of a large urban police department. Well, that doesn't make. The caretaker of a building. So in this case, I would guess that Thomas Winterton is the caretaker of Skinwalker Ranch. And by the way, I just want to say, Thomas, you're doing such a great job. Those buildings are all falling down. Why don't you do something about that, bro? You're letting people walk around in literally buildings that could fall down on top of them, you asshole. Really? You're the superintendent? The buildings are falling down around people as they walk through them. Isn't that a liability? Isn't that like a health hazard? I would think so. Great job, superintending. But interestingly, so Thomas Winterton forms a company to do economic development. And I would just like to publicly ask Thomas Winterton, because I tried to look it up and wasn't able to find anything, what education or qualification does the superintendent of a paranormal ranch, who's doing a piss poor job being a superintendent because all the buildings are falling down, what education or experience does he have in economic consulting or economic development or local government or tourism even? To the best of my knowledge, he has no experience or education in those fields. So why would the governments local to the Skinwalker Ranch give that clown a contract for $175,000? And what is he supposed to be doing for that $100,000? And of course, the commissioner of that local government did not immediately respond to an email request for comment on her assessment of circumstances surrounding consultation services undertaken by Intermountain Economic Consulting. So here's where it gets interesting. So it's not just one person from the secret of Skinwalker scam that is getting paid off by the local government for whatever reason. And by the way, I'm not implying any criminal activity here, but this doesn't look right. And I'm confused. Why would a TV star suddenly start getting big checks from the local government? Well, it has to do with Phenomenon, of course. Vernell City Manager Quinn Benyon told EFR during the October email exchange that Phenomenon speakers and amounts of compensation were decided by an organizing committee of which he was a member. Benyon averted from describing the process in more detail when asked to do so, advising that he would not be responding to further emails. So the local officials who were giving the Skinwalker TV clowns money for some reason don't want to talk about it. They told Jack Brewer, we're not going to talk anymore. We're not responding to any more emails. On October 26, records requests submitted to Travis Campbell, director of the Office of Utah County Economic Development. The request sought records pertaining to the Phenomenon Organizing Committee as described by City Manager Banyan. A list of its members, minutes. Jack Brewer's thorough. He asked, give me everything you got. I want to see what's going on here. Campbell briefly replied by email the same day, I am not associated with the organizing committee you mentioned, so I don't have any records pertaining to your request. He then suggested Jack find the records elsewhere. Thomas Winterton, when asked if he was a member of the Phenomenon Organizing Committee, replied, I am, and I'm very proud to be a part of it, apparently alluding to formulas for arriving at amounts of compensation. He added that he offered Utah County comparison figures as to what have been paid to us by the conferences we have attended. But I did not ask for a specific amount, Winterton continued, raising the palms of his hands to the computer screen. Nor did I have anything to do with the amounts of my compensation or the rest of the team. So the local government is holding UFO conventions. You know that the UFO money is good when the local government says, you know what, we got to get in on this UFO Skinwalker scam money. Let's run a conference, right? Awesome. So let's continue here. As indicated above, Thomas Winterton adamantly defends the integrity of Intermountain Economic Consulting and his action. And again, I just want to ask Thomas Winterton, what other economic consulting have you done? Or are you just getting paid off by the government local to Skinwalker Ranch? And don't you think that's a conflict of interest? He repeatedly made statements to that effect. He also explained he felt personally attacked by EFR inquiries and reporting. It was subsequently suggested that from this side of the inquiries, a more accurate description might be that a threat of entitlement and resistance to government transparency runs through several of the people who populate this story. Yeah, so essentially, the local government is paying Skinwalker Ranch stars for economic consulting. Okay. So a television star is advising the local government on economics and how to make a lot of money through travel and tourism. This is just another cash-in for the Skinwalker stars. Apparently, according to Jack Brewer, the stars of Skinwalker Ranch were handed at least $175,000 in local government taxpayer-funded money. And I, for one, just wonder, did the local taxpayers vote on this? Do the people paying taxes local to Skinwalker Ranch want the clowns who are already, some of them making millions of dollars on a television show, to get $175,000 from the local community? For what? To appear at a freaking Skinwalker conference? And by the way, we've got some fun stuff to share about what happens at the Skinwalker, at the Phenomenon conference. You too can have dinner with the lead science advisor of the Skinwalker Ranch for just a few $1,000s. It's awesome. But before we do that, I have this queued up. We're going to cite fair use. This is a transformative work. We are educating the public about the Skinwalker scam. I mean, the secret of Skinwalker. And by the way, when I say that, this is my opinion and my speculation, and I'm entitled to it. Because if it looks shady and it appears shady, and it's probably shady. But it is what it is. So we'll put our fair use banner up. This is a transformative work. We're educating the public and critiquing the videos that we are sharing. We'll be commenting and discussing the video that we are sharing. So this is certainly covered under fair use. This is also a transformative work, further making it applicable under fair use. So this is Thomas Winterton, who, by the way, told me that if I don't like the Skinwalker TV show, what did he say? He said, maybe I should be watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians because that's more my speed, right? Well, great, Thomas Winterton. I'm not the one playing Ghostbusters with my life, you idiot. I'm not the one pretending to be an economic consultant and taking what may be allegedly payoffs from the local government so they can get in on the con, okay? So don't insult me on Twitter, Mr. Superintendent. That's the superintendent of a property with fallen down buildings that you're letting visitors go in. Great job. Why don't you fix the roofs? They're not going to fix the roofs. They want it to look decrepit and beat up and old, right? They could rebuild that in one day. They won't. It's the most haunted place on Skinwalker Ranch, don't you know? Yeah. And all you got out of it was videos of silkworms or bugs. Congratulations. All right. We're going to share some of this. And this was wonderful. And by the way, I'm a terrible show host. So what I'm going to do right now is go over to YouTube before we play this. Sorry, pretty busy day here, but I'm going to put Jack Brewer's, I'm going to put this video on in the description of the video because this is just wonderful work. It didn't get very much attention that I'm aware of. I don't know, or maybe this is a repost of this, but I'm just going to put Jack Brewer's interrogation of Thomas, and we'll put the link right in the description of the video. You really should, if you're interested in these topics, watch that entire video. We're just going to be playing portions of it because you know it's 35 minutes long, and Thomas here is going to be asked by oh, this is just wonderful. So Jack Brewer's like interrogating him, like, why are you taking money from the local government? What are you supposed to be doing for them? And Thomas Winterton starts saying that the local government has gotten hundreds of millions of dollars in benefit by paying him and his company and his friends the $175,000 plus the money for Phenomicon. They've gotten hundreds of millions of dollars in financial benefit or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but we're going to listen to some of this.
Feel heard and feel that you present your case. I might have to call a timeout though to get all of my questions in. Okay.
I will give you whatever time you need.
I appreciate that. Yeah, the Collier's issue, I do not claim to be qualified to cite in any potential problems or discrepancies in the real estate market. What stood out to me as a writer and a researcher is that the public agendas and the discussions at commission meetings, county commission meetings, and the Uinta County budget referenced payment to Colliers, and the check is not to Colliers. It's to Intermountain Consulting. So to me, that's something to look into and ask about.
Yeah, and just so everybody's aware, there appears to be some kind of shell game with what I believe to be, and this is my opinion and speculation, multiple shell companies surrounding this controversy about the local officials paying off Skinwalker television stars somehow. And Jack Brewer correctly points out it doesn't make sense if the local meeting minutes are saying we paid one company, but the check is made out to another company. This is so shady that I can't believe that a billionaire business person thinks it's okay for people that I would call his staff, right? Thomas Winterton is one of his staff members, is doing this. Was Fugel aware of all this consulting companies and the money payoffs and the Phenomicon plans so that his crew members could make an additional several $100,000 on top of what Brandon Fugel is paying them? And at some point you have to say, you're already getting TV star money, right, to be on the television show. That's not enough for you. You decide to come up with this thing to be an economic consultant and run local. This is just shady.
Is why I brought it up. I understand that Mr. Fugel is closely related with Collier's. You mentioned
Yeah, so Collier's is Brandon Fugel's company, and Thomas Winterton has a separate company. And the local towns said they paid Brandon Fugel's company, but they really paid Thomas Winterton's company. So I would question, did Thomas Winterton misrepresent anything that Brandon Fugel? And we need on the record statements and comments from Brandon Fugel about this entire controversy. And by the way, this is just one facet of the Skinwalker scam story. Like, why is Brandon Fugel not talking about this? Why won't he give interviews? Why is he blocking people on Twitter who ask questions about this? Right? If you're not doing anything, the only people who fear questions are people with something to hide.
that
On that point, if you go back to the actual recording in the county commission meeting, you will hear me say Intermountain Economic Consulting. Whether they had it in their heads as Collier's or not, the fact is that we never misrepresented that as them doing business.
how
with
would they
Collier's.
have gotten that in their head?
Because Brandon is the chairman of Collier's International. When he gives them a business card, it says Collier's on it.
Okay, so he denies misrepresenting himself as, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Thank you. Okay, and you mentioned that you feel a great deal of work was brought to the area for that 58,000, and you mentioned people I could call. Do you have any data?
Yeah, so he got one payment of $58,000 that he claims brought a great deal of economic development and benefit to the local community. And Jack Brewer, boy, he's a bulldog. But you know what I like about Jack Brewer is that he's so calm and unassuming. Like, he's not threatening. He's like your fun older uncle or grandpa or something. He's just not threatening. And I think Thomas Winterton really screwed up agreeing to do this. Like, he should have just kept his mouth shut and said, talk to my lawyer, because Jack Brewer is going to ask him, do you have any data to support your claims?
That you can present. See, the way I look at things, sir, is I do records requests. And when I did a records request, repeated ones on IEC, I got no responsive documents of deliverables or final reports. I couldn't run down if the contracts had been renewed. I was able to see it was a 12-month contract. Has that been renewed?
So I'll give you some nuggets. You can go grandma request. I sent an email to the commissioners on October 11th of 2021. Our contract was due to expire in January. Now, mind you, we were able to close this deal with this electric vehicle company. I mean, any place in the country would call that a win-win. 58,000 for 500 jobs. That's a fantastic value. Now, we could have easily called it good January and said we fulfilled our contract, but because we had Jim Morse, who put in more than 40 hours a week in Uintah County for the entire year. So we met our contractual obligations.
Wow, that's pretty good money. $58,000 for 40 hours of work. Am I hearing that right? And interestingly, Jack Brewer was not able to find any paperwork from the county about what they got for their money. To the best of my knowledge of this situation, by the way, I could be in error.
Personally felt there was more I wanted to do. So you can go grandma request an email that I sent, Thomas Winterton, to the 3 commissioners on October 11th. And I told them that I updated them on our progress. And I also told them that I wanted to extend the contract at no cost to the county for an extra 8 weeks to make up for the time that I was filming. That contract, that is in writing. I continued to work even beyond that 8 weeks.
Yeah, and here's where he's stupid for doing this interview. Thomas Winterton is stupid for doing this interview. He should have contacted his attorney and spoken only through his attorney, because right here is a problem. It's a big problem for him, because he's essentially saying, well, you could take it one of two ways. I take what he just said as saying, well, I did take the money and agree to perform certain services, but then because I'm a greedy slob, right? I was busy filming a television show I'm also getting paid for. While I'm taking money from the community to work for them, I'm working for Brandon Fugel, making money over there. I didn't have time to complete whatever work I was supposed to do for them. So I'm going to give them another 8 weeks, or they're going to give me another 8 weeks to actually give them something for the money that they gave me. But I was too busy being a TV show star playing Ghostbusters to do the work for the local community that I'd already been paid for. Great job, Thomas Winterton, you clown. Next time, talk to a lawyer, stupid.
Until almost the 1st of May for Uintah County, the discussion was that we would renew that. But by the time I finished what I felt completely met my obligation, where I have 100% clear conscience on everything, that was around the middle of April. I knew that filming would be coming around again. And I had discussions with Brandon and told him I was not going to approach the county just to have to leave in a month to start filming. So that we agreed to wait until filming was done.
Hey, Thomas, I have a suggestion. Maybe you shouldn't take $175,000 or $58,000 or however many thousands of dollars you took from the local community. If you're going to be busy playing Ghostbusters on a television show and you don't have time to do the work that you already collected the money for, maybe, just maybe, you should have turned the contract down because you knew that you'd be tied up playing Ghostbusters on the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch television show, right? You know, and I love how he says, oh, I completed the work and my conscience was clear, but it took me extra time to do it, right? Great.
I will be reapproaching Uintah County and asking them if they would like to.
And did the contract...
Can you guys pay me again? Because I did such a great job not finishing the work that I was paid to do on time that I'd like to get another big payout. Great.
With Duchesne and Daggett get renewed?
It's the exact same scenario with them.
Thank you.
I have never taken advantage of anybody.
He has never taken advantage of anybody. Great.
To say I felt really targeted in your piece. I feel like my character's been attacked. I know there was a podcast done recently. I feel like this has been very one-sided reporting on your part and not accurate to all of the facts. So I apologize for being a little defensive, but I feel like this is a little bit of a witch hunt.
Did you receive my emails to ask you for comment on the first piece?
Jack's gonna
I did not receive emails from you.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't know. Listen, I just want to say this. I don't know Jack Brewer well, but I do know from his work that Jack Brewer is like a very detail-oriented kind of a reporter. He would not put a piece out about anybody or anything without asking the people involved in the story for their comment. And you will see in his original story, this guy's like, this is a witch hunt and this is one-sided reporting and I didn't get to tell my side of the story. No, Jack Brewer asked you for your side of the story and you did not reply to him. You ignored him. It was only after the piece went out that suddenly Thomas Winterton goes into damage control mode and decides, I better get ahead of this and tell my side of the story. Great. And here Jack is going to slam him. I emailed you. I asked you for comment. And Thomas Winterton, I didn't get those emails. Sure you didn't.
But I will tell you this. I literally receive hundreds of messages a week from fans of the show.
Yes.
And it's very
He's getting
possible
hundreds
that
of
yours
fan mail messages a week because, he plays Ghostbusters on television. Awesome.
Slipped in there with them.
Okay. I have one more question, please, and then I'll allow you to state what you'd like in closing. The Vernal City manager, Binion, mentioned to me in an email, as was documented in the previous article, that he was part of an organizing committee for Phenomicon, and that this organizing committee decided the speakers and the amounts of compensation paid to the speakers. Were you part of that organizing committee?
I am, and I'm very proud to be part of it. I will say that in planning this
awesome.
for the first time, this is a first of its kind in Uinta County.
This is awesome. So he planned the convention with the local officials that him and all of his Skinwalker co-stars would get big payouts for. Great. He's part of the planning commission.
Offered them,
he's proud of it.
I offered them comparisons as to what had been paid to us in other conferences that we have attended, but I did not ask for a specific amount, nor did I have anything to do with my compensation or the rest of the team. It was a discussion, but ultimately it was the tourism.
No, he just gave the local officials like a printout, like here's what we got paid previously by other event organizers. So you want to be in this ballpark. He's trying to say that he didn't set the compensation, but he did, in my opinion, because he gave the county people probably a printout. This is how much Travis Taylor got paid at Contact in the Desert or whatever. This is how much I got paid at this convention or that convention. He essentially told them, this is what we should get paid, around this amount. He gave them the ballpark, right? But now he's going to try to weasel out of that.
The
Tourism.
Thank you. It was the travel and tourism directors that made that call. All I did was show them previous compensations. And if you will look at our compensations as far as our speakers fee, you'll see that it's actually very comparable to what you would find at other conferences. I've actually been paid more at other conferences than this. And I offered to volunteer my services at this one, but they didn't feel that it was right. I put in a lot of work during Phenomicon.
Yeah, I'm sure he offered to turn down a paycheck. And by the way, Thomas Winterton, that's something we can fact check with the Travel and Tourism Board. So I'll be calling them to find out if you offered to do it for free, but they said, no, we have to pay you. You got to be careful when you're getting interviewed, saying stupid things that might not be factually accurate, because it could come back to haunt you, Mr. Winterton. And if those county officials don't tell me that you offered to do it for free, then you are a liar, sir. And we're going to check into that and we'll report it.
And I didn't receive a penny. It was, the committee is completely volunteer. So I would say during the course of the year, I volunteer anywhere from 40 to 50 hours of my time to help organize this event.
The local community, which is also running this convention, is giving him $58,000 checks, or I'm a little unclear, or was it $175,000 checks to do economic development, but he claims that he's volunteering for the county. No, you got a huge paycheck, Thomas Winterton, to do this. You weren't volunteering. We're going to fact check that. We're going to call the local county officials and ask them if they have a log of the volunteer hours that you put into these projects that is separate from the for-profit hours that you put into these projects that you were paid these huge amounts of money for.
I do that completely. I don't get paid for that time. I don't get paid for my efforts. And as far as compensation, if you go look at what I was offered versus other speakers, there were many other speakers that were paid more than I was in speaker fees. Now, add-ons, the activities, those are different. And those are.
Oh yeah, the VIP passes. That's what he's talking about. You could have a VIP lunch with hillbilly Travis Taylor, the hillbilly scientist who, builds rockets out of moonshine and sees aliens and plans for alien invasions.
It's the same for everybody. So I don't have a percentage that just applies to me. The arrangement is the same for all of us, and it comes down to number of tickets that are sold. and I by far sold more tickets than anybody else for my events. So it's the same contract and percentage.
Do you have anything you'd like to say in closing, or anything you'd like to ask of me?
Yeah, I'm curious. What your fascination is. You're not a resident of if I world matter. What is the fascination with trying this feel? I apologize. I'm sure you're a very nice individual. I feel very targeted in this when we have bent over backwards to do nothing but help the community. I have the original emails proposing what different ways that local businesses could get involved that had nothing to do with me, just ways to help get businesses involved that could capitalize on the tourism that's coming in. Did you know that Skinwalker Ranch, our film production, the past 4 years, these are the easy numbers that are easy to calculate.
Oh, now he's going to give us some numbers of the economic benefit that the local community enjoyed from being involved with the Skinwalker Ranch, and maybe why they would give Skinwalker Ranch TV show stars big consulting payoffs.
That's hotels, that's food that's paid to caterers, and equipment that's rented in the area. Just those three categories. It doesn't take into account any spending that's done anywhere else. We have the production has brought $4.5 million direct spending into the area. That doesn't account for the tourism.
Where is he getting these numbers from? I'm not sure Jack really drilled down on that, but where is he getting that the local community benefited in the form of $4.5 million? Where is he getting that from? Who's giving him those numbers?
Bring in, that doesn't count Phenomenon. That is simply the money that the production has spent on hotels, food, and equipment. So we've done nothing but try to help the local.
Okay, so he's saying that the television production company has spent $4 million.
Area, and I feel
so. This could be considered sort of a tit for tat situation. Like, well, we as a community might benefit economically, so we should work together. And here's some consulting money.
Feel like you and your counterparts are doing your best to try to disparage and tear down something that the community openly embraces and is thankful for. We work so hard to try to get people here in this small community, and it's disheartening when we have outside individuals with no stake or interest in the local area come in. And you didn't mention any of the economic benefits in your article. You didn't mention.
Yeah, well, he asked you to comment. You could have given him the economic benefits for his article, but Thomas Winterton chose not to.
That's the purpose of travel and tourism budgets, is to actually draw in tourism. I feel like you guys are attacking us, and I feel like you guys are not being honest with us as far as the intentions behind this, because one of your counterparts, I feel, has a serious axe to grind with the Skinwalker Ranch crew.
Yeah, he's talking about the fact that Erica Lukes was a victim of domestic violence at the hands of a former Skinwalker security guard.
That's what's motivated. So maybe I would love to give you a chance to speak to that, and because I don't want this to be one-sided either. You need the chance to be able to answer that as well, and I'll give you.
It's great. Thomas Winterton worked with a woman beater, right? So he's saying it's because that woman got beat up by my woman beater security guard. That's why you're doing this to me, right? That's why you're scrutinizing this whole payoff situation, right?
Every time you need to answer that.
Thank you. Personally, I have written about the UFO community and the people that populate it for. I started a blog in 2010 and was interested long before that. And I have a couple of self-published books about the narratives and the social circumstances that surround the unsupported stories, unverified claims that often intermingle with the intelligence community. So personally, that's part of my interest.
Yeah, he did.
I began interacting and collaborating with Erica Lutz about 4 years ago, and since found her to be one of the better informed people as far as the players in the Uinta Basin and
That's
the
true.
stories
Yeah.
of the area.
And there's a
go.
Dino Beaver sauna
and
too.
am proud to work with her at Expanding Frontiers Research. I got to notice that we're out of time, but I am
You've
proud.
still got 10 minutes.
I'm proud to work with her, and my interest. I'll tell you frankly, as I began to send emails and ask people for comment, as I conducted grammar requests, I do not doubt that you and some of the people in your area feel targeted and attacked. From my perspective, it felt more like a thread of entitlement of being asked to have transparency of government. And one of the things that particularly interests
Yeah, a bunch of city officials are running UFO conventions and paying off local TV stars. And Jack Brewer's a bad guy for reporting about it, right?
me about Phenomenon was that we get into a whole different set of circumstances when we take these stories and these conferences
That could
and
be
the
true.
capitalist elements of it and have county governments funding it, and when
You're right,
tax
Steve Long.
money gets in what I sometimes refer to as the UFO carnival business. As far though as targeting you, for instance, I also have request into the city of Roswell, and I'm expecting them any day. Literally, maybe in my post office box now as we
Interesting. I'll
speak,
check it
and
out.
I anticipate writing about them as well and seeing how that shapes up. Does that adequately answer your question?
Yeah, and look, I'm all about transparency. I'm very proud of everything that we've accomplished here. The important thing is,
He's very
is that
proud
it's
of those
reported
paychecks.
accurately. That's all I care about.
He's very proud of the paychecks.
And I didn't feel that in your first article, you even covered, I mean, any county in the country, if they could spend $9,000, you know, the economic benefits to that this year are well north of $600,000 for 1 week. That's direct dollars pumped into Uinta County. If you
Again, where is he getting the numbers of $600,000 was pumped into this little county in Utah? Oh, I'm going to have to start making some phone calls, Thomas Winterton, right? You should have just kept your mouth shut.
to
Do
any
you have data
government.
that supports that?
Yeah,
that
where's
you
the
could
data?
Provide me to put in an article.
So the county, you know, the local
Something on a sheet of paper, like an official government
have you
document.
have you
He's
looked
getting
at
pissed.
any of the TRT tax reports? Have you looked at any of the sales tax reports? Have you compared them? It's hard because COVID really put a ding in, and this conference has been a godsend as far as its timing because COVID just decimated the economies. But yes, that is actual hard numbers that travel and tourism can get. Now, those numbers for this quarter will not be out until the end of December because
Well, it should be out by now. We could take a look there, Thomas
they're
Winterton.
calculated from the previous quarter. But yes, travel and tourism has actual numbers. And if you, I imagine you read my post on.
Oh, thanks for
on
letting me know.
Facebook.
I never knew that.
It was
He's
forward.
an economist and an accountant. Okay, good. I'm glad that you let me know that. So that means he does have some qualifications as far as being able to run an economic development company. Good to know. Thank you for the clarification. And we-
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you go down, if you look at that Facebook post and you go down on there, there are comments in there of individuals that traveled there. One gentleman said they spent over $2,500 in Uintah County during their week there. I had the owner of Four Brothers Pizza in Vernal tell me that she saw, I think she said her tax revenue alone for her place for that week was $1,000. Now, if that's the tax revenue, you can imagine how many pizzas that is, because taxes represents a small portion of the actual sell. So there are business owners. When I go into restaurants, I have people thanking me for Phenomicon, the local restaurants and businesses. 800
Giving you
people
the
out of
benefit
the
of the
area,
doubt.
new
Yeah,
money.
one weekend where there's 800 people eating at local restaurants, I guess that would be a benefit, but is that worth the apparently $175,000 that these guys were paid? You know, I don't understand. And by the way, I was able to find there's something called Intermountain Economic Consulting, and Thomas Winterton is shown as a managing director. And we'll share that. So, you know, I apologize for the question. It is a valid question. What qualifications does he have? If he's an economist and accountant, maybe. Yeah, sure. We'll give him that.
Giving you the benefit of the doubt that all of
What's
that
that?
is, giving you the benefit of the doubt that all of that is absolutely correct. Do you not see a conflict of interest in county government enabling stories about dogmen at ranches in order to get that tourism?
How is that any difference from them? The county also puts
So
on
your
the
answer
energy
would
summit.
be no.
Hang on.
You don't.
No, I see zero conflict. Zero conflict. That's no different than
Yeah.
this county.
So essentially, the local community is encouraging stories about werewolves with no evidence and no proof, stories about dino beavers with no evidence and no proof, as well as the multiple, 100 stories of fake paranormal activity on a television show. The local community is essentially endorsing that so that they could get some tourism money out of it. That is a conflict of interest, and it's an ethics lapse on the part of the local officials because they are essentially endorsing the Skinwalker Ranch scam by paying these guys to help them get tourism dollars. It appears to me, having looked at this situation in Jack Brewer's article, that the local officials figured out that they could get in on it. So let's pay these guys and they'll help us get in on it, and the whole community will benefit. And all we have to do is endorse stories of smoking dogmen, right? That's all we have to do.
On a regular basis, bring in paid speakers to speak at conference. One example, the energy conference over at over in Vernal.
I don't
They
find
bring in
that
speakers
remotely comparable, but I understand your argument.
Well, it's topics that the county may or may not condone. They're not saying they condone it. This is all about promoting economic development. Nowhere does the county say we are getting behind what Travis or Thomas or any of the other people claimed.
Yeah, yes, they are. They are endorsing it by paying you and holding conferences where you're telling people this nightmarish, list of fake stories. They are endorsing it by being in business with you, Thomas Winterton.
It's simply all they care about is that people come, stay in the hotels, and spend their money at the restaurants. And as long as at the end of the day, the money they spend on the conference is less than the money that they earn on the taxes and the revenue, then it's a net positive for the county. That's all they care. They're not condoning or endorsing any of us.
I beg to differ. By being in business with them, that's an endorsement. It's a stamp of approval from the local county on the Skinwalker Ranch claims, which are various and absolutely ridiculous. This guy's going to sit there with a straight face while people are running around telling stories of werewolves and dogmen and dino beavers and portals and aliens and shapeshifters and say that the government is not endorsing that by being in business with them, not endorsing it by paying them to participate, to hold a conference in their local area? Of course it's an endorsement. Jack Brewer's 100% right on this.
Paying, and I can prove that by the fact that they bring in regularly speakers for all different topics and subjects for which they're not saying they endorse them. They're just providing a venue.
All right. I want to thank you for spending some time with me and putting your statements on the record. I appreciate it.
Jack Brewer, very
Thank you for
diplomatic.
having a civil conversation and being able to give me a chance to speak to this. I respect that and I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, that's it. We made it. We made it. Interesting. Jack Brewer's doing some interesting work, and isn't it wonderful that these people, once they get called to the carpet. But I'm going to share this because I was in error. I believe I looked previously to see what his education or his qualifications are. Thomas is a lifelong resident and entrepreneur in the Uinta Basin with experience as a small business owner, general contractor, and project manager, spanning a wide range of activities. Well, that's pretty vague, though. He's the president of the Roosevelt Rotary Club, chairman of the Republican Party, Utah Republican Party, state central committee member, chairman of the board of One Heart, Bulgaria, and has served in the advisory panel for the Uinta Basin Applied Technology Center. And this is his business with Brandon Fugel, who's the chairman, and Thomas Winterton is the managing director. Yeah, great. And there's a phone number here. So I'll try to call them and ask them for the data on what economic development that they have provided. And I would like to know exactly how much money was paid to Skinwalker Ranch members, associates. Some of it is available on Jack Brewer's website, but interesting. I don't see anything about his education because, I'm sorry, if you're going to take contracts for economic development, you should have some training in economics. If he does, great. Good for him. But I still think that this looks a little shady. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm looking at LinkedIn and there's 10 Thomas Wintertons, so I'm going to have to do that off air. But we'll do an update about Thomas Winterton, his education, his qualifications to provide economic development services for local governments. Would be interesting to see when this Intermountain Economic Consulting was formed. Let's see if they show anything in the about. A nice office building. That's a stock photo. I doubt that's their real building. Full service economic development firm based in Salt Lake City, Utah, with an office in the Uinta Basin. With expertise in, this is what they do: location advisory, incentives negotiation. Great. So pay us consulting fees, and then we'll do incentives negotiation and tell you people how much you should pay us to appear at a conference we're involved in. Economic development consulting and development advocacy. The founders of the firm, Brandon Fugel, Thomas Winterton, and Jim Morse, have combined experience in the areas of commercial real estate development, economic development, international trade, and development over 80 years. I guess that's between us. Law Kramer serves as special advisor and ongoing consultant in Intermountain Economic Consulting. The principal firm, but it doesn't say like when they started the business, because it'd be interested. Says 2021. It would be interesting to see if they just started this to funnel money through the local community to them. But these are all things that we will have to research more offline. And yes, Philharmonica says they have also been using Native American legends to push this narrative. I agree. Yeah, qualifications, well-connected, good old boy. Yeah, it would appear that way. Absolutely. So, along with that part of the Skinwalker controversy of late, we should also certainly mention that Stephen Greenstreet's piece. Oh no, another one. Yeah, and remember what I said that Brandon Fugel was? Now he's blocking women content creators who ask him questions. Uh, Great. Brandon Fugel. Oh no, Brandon Fugel blocked Stephen Greenstreet, and she says, "So sorry to see it end like this." Yeah, I think they had a little bit of a bromance going, right? Interesting that Fugel said a lot of nice stuff about Greenstreet, but then, inevitably, when Greenstreet's piece came out, he didn't want to be friendly anymore, right? He just wanted to block him on Twitter. Great, and I'm trying to find it. I want to show you what you get for your extra money. And again, this is fair use. This is a transformative work. Stephen Greenstreet posted this. Somebody posted the whole thing, but here, Travis Taylor, the star of Brandon Fugel's The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch on the History, claims the paranormal hitchhiker, 1, gave Jay Stratton's neighbor cancer, 2, killed Robert Bigelow's wife. Yeah. So, it gets pretty deep. And this is from a VIP lunch. If you spent the $500 or whatever it costs to attend Phenomenon and hang out with the and listen to the fake stories with no evidence from the Skinwalker stars, including Travis Taylor, you can also pay an extra fee and have lunch with Travis Taylor, and then you get the good stuff that I don't believe Travis Taylor was aware that he was being filmed and recorded while he was saying this stuff. And I just want to mention, for the benefit of everyone within the sound of my voice, a lot of these UFO con artists, grifters, a lot of them, I am aware that they say things off stage that they would never want people to hear that they said. And I think this is one of those circumstances, because he makes a lot of out there, really wackadoo claims right here. Let's get into it.
I don't know if you guys are aware of this thing called the hitchhiker, but it's been talked about since the Bigelow era. In fact, I know who coined the term hitchhiker, but he hasn't told me it's okay for me to say that yet. But attach his name to it yet. It's basically Axelrod in that book.
Oh.
So I know Axelrod very well.
Yes, Kirkpatrick, the head of the current government UFO program, Arrow.
And all that stuff I've measured with scientific instruments in his house.
Okay, great. He measured the hitchhiker effect with scientific instruments in Mr. Kirkpatrick's house. So can we get that data, Travis Taylor? You wouldn't be just making this stuff up, would you? Can we get the data?
Freaky. We've had simultaneous events occur at his house, my house, and in a house in the Uinta Basin, all at once. So we've measured. Within a microsecond.
If they've measured it, then they have data available. Stephen Greenstreet and Mick West have been asking to see the data, and all they get is videos of what is likely bugs flying in front of a camera or other nonsense. Brandon Fugel has not released any data, and neither has Travis Taylor, but here he is talking to people that are paying hundreds of dollars to have lunch with him, because he's a big star. He plays Ghostbusters on TV, and UFO Hunter Man on TV, and Alien Invasion Guy on TV, as well as Hillbilly Scientist making rockets out of moonshine. Great. And by the way, I built rockets growing up as a kid. I still build rockets. no matter what I say about Travis Taylor, if I got a chance to build a moonshine rocket with him, I would. So I'm not slagging him for that. But what I am slagging him for is claiming that he has all of this data while he is talking to big fans of the show who are paying hundreds of dollars to have lunch with him. This is the good stuff that you only get if you pay the extra money. Is he lying to all those people who paid hundreds of dollars? Could we see the data, Travis Taylor? You claim that you have data from sensor readings. Can we get copies of all that data? And if so, why not? You told these people who were paying to hear this information, and let's be clear, if he's lying to people that are paying hundreds of dollars to get this so-called secret insider information, I feel like that's part of that's dangerously close to something that many people, I'm sure, would consider consumer fraud. These people paid hundreds of dollars to get the inside scoop. He's saying all of these things happened and we have data to support it. Where is the data? Or is he lying to paying customers?
Events occurred, which that you can't do that. And but the worst phenomena is there have been a couple of people who had I guess you call them orbs, whatever, in their house, and or wraith-like things in their house. Yeah. And well, one of the neighbors of Axelrod had an orb fly through them, and they ended up with a very dangerous form of cancer from it. And
so let's be very clear. Travis Taylor is at a VIP lunch where people paid hundreds of dollars, and he's claiming that a neighbor of Kirkpatrick, the person who runs Arrow, had an orb hitchhiked to him from Skinwalker Ranch and caused him to have cancer. Can we see the medical records? Do we have medical confirmation? Do we have doctors confirming that this guy got cancer from an orb? Or did the guy just get cancer and happen to live near Axelrod, which is a code word for Kirkpatrick? You know, this is ridiculous. People are paying hundreds of dollars, and this is what you're telling them? That orbs from the Skinwalker Ranch somehow attached themselves with this hitchhiker effect to Kirkpatrick, and then one of his neighbors had an orb from Skinwalker Ranch fly through him, and he got cancer. But it gets even crazier, because next he's going to claim that Bigelow's wife got killed by stuff from Skinwalker, right?
And I don't think I think she's still alive, but she's having to go through all sorts of chemo and radiation treatments like that to try and keep from that. Now Bigelow, reason he got rid of the place was he was convinced he killed his wife. And so I would call those pretty drastic hitchhiker phenomena.
This is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that this man is accepting money from all these people and he's telling these stories, absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But there's more, and it gets more ridiculous. It gets more ridiculous. Of course it does, because welcome to the circus. Welcome to the circus, friends. And I just want to play a piece of Axelrod Stratton. Yeah, 1 second here. This is transformative work again. Meet Jay Axelrod. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Jay Stratton is Axelrod. I'm sorry, not Mr. Kirkpatrick. I'm getting these new players confused, so I apologize. Jay Stratton, who was involved with OSAP, not with Arrow. I apologize, and please accept this as a correction. The Axelrod mentioned in George Knapp's books under a code word, right? And many people have called him that. Axelrod is actually Jay Stratton. And he ran OSAP, which was the predecessor to Lou Elizondo's claimed UFO program that never existed, called ATIP.
This is Jay Stratton. He was a naval intelligence officer who, over the course of 30 years, held many positions in the Department of Defense. Many don't know his name because he's only just recently retired and made his first public appearances.
Yeah, and where is his first public appearance? At Alien Con. I think that seems very appropriate. And just to be clear, Travis Taylor is saying that Axelrod here visited the ranch, and then he took hitchhiker entities back to his house, and then those same hitchhiker entities somehow formed a spirit orb, which then went to his neighbor's house and gave his neighbors cancer. Great. Why would you let people on a ranch that was giving people cancer? I don't know. Good question.
But while in the government, Stratton was involved with UFOs and Skinwalker Ranch for at least 15 years.
15 years this guy made money off of UFOs and Skinwalker Ranch.
Back in 2007, Stratton says he read the book Hunt for the Skinwalker, along with his co-worker James Lakatsky.
And it's important to realize that this book is the George Knapp book that is filled with spooky stories they claimed they had all this evidence for, but when pressed for the evidence by Joe Rogan, George Knapp admitted that they had no evidence. And these two clowns read this book, which claimed to have evidence, which turns out there is no evidence, and they were all chips in on the Skinwalker Ranch thing.
At the Defense Intelligence Agency. Our previous report debunks many aspects of this book, which contains many spooky stories, but provides no evidence at all to back up any of
No evidence at all to back up any of the claims. Bigfoot-like creatures on the ranch, werewolves on the ranch, dino beavers on the ranch, shapeshifters, alien predators, UFOs, and more. And don't forget the smoking dog men.
Despite this, both Stratton and Lakatsky were fascinated by the book and its stories of UFOs, ghosts, and monsters. Lakatsky lobbied Senator Harry Reid to acquire $22 million to study UFOs in Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, and just to be clear, that's what I was talking about at the beginning of the broadcast. The United States government wasted $22 million giving essentially government insiders and Bob Bigelow $22 million to study his own ranch.
Lakatsky was the director of this study, a program called OSAP, and Stratton was a lead investigator. In Lakatsky's self-published book about OSAP, he refers to Stratton.
Yeah, George Knapp wasn't done cashing in on the Skinwalker scam, so then he did a book with Stratton. Great.
Stratton with a pseudonym, Jonathan Axelrod. But it's now been confirmed to me by multiple sources that Axelrod is Stratton. The book says Stratton first went to Skinwalker Ranch in 2009, and while there, he became possessed or infected with a poltergeist.
Oh, this is so stupid.
And that it followed him home and tormented his family. The following is a partial list of what Stratton reportedly encountered. A huge wolf-like creature, screaming black shadowy humanoids, nightmarish dogmen, dark humanoid creatures. Even after OSAP was shut down in 2012, Stratton continued his pursuit of the paranormal, utilizing his position at the Pentagon to move the needle. It's reported that Stratton used his clout to create an official UFO task force within the Pentagon. He would then become the director of this task force. And that brings us back to Stratton's 2019 meeting with Travis Taylor.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. So it would appear that not just local government officials want to get in on the Skinwalker scam, national government figures like people that work at the Pentagon. Several people who worked at the Pentagon have gotten in on the Skinwalker scam, including Jay Stratton and Travis Taylor, right? Travis Taylor's getting huge paychecks now. And he also worked for the government with UFOs or the Pentagon offices that were interested in UFOs. So this is kind of ridiculous. Why are our government officials wasting taxpayer money on nonsense, right? And but what will happen next is interesting. So I mentioned in the thumbnail here that the the UFO grifters are panicking. And all of this negative attention heaped onto Skinwalker Ranch has not been good for them. We have the scandal surrounding, uncovered by Jack Brewer, surrounding members of the Skinwalker Ranch getting paid by the local government for, we're still not sure what, economic development. And by the way, I'm going to look into that story separately, and we'll do a special report on that. Next, we get Stephen Greenstreet's piece, which just obliterates this entire story. And by the way, again, I'm a terrible show host, so I am going to add, not that he needs a bump from me, but for reference so that you can follow along, I highly recommend Stephen Greenstreet's latest piece on the Skinwalker Ranch, and that would be his latest one. It's called Skinwalker Ranch, Judgment Day, Camping on the Ranch Alone and New Revelations, the Basement Office. And I'm going to go over to our YouTube channel and just add it to the description of the video. I apologize for the delay here, but if I don't do it now, sometimes I will forget to do it. So here we go. I'm going to just put a Basement Office episode, and the link will be in the description of the video. It was so good that I considered playing the whole thing here and doing commentary, but quite honestly, one, I don't know how Mr. Greenstreet feels about somebody playing an entire video of his that's 40 minutes long or something, and doing commentary on it. And two, I don't think it needs commentary. I think that Greenstreet nailed every aspect that he presented, including the fact that despite all of the claims by Brandon Fugel and others that this is all about science, all of his companies are registered as entertainment companies. This is entertainment. It's a goddamn circus, and Brandon Fugel is at the center of it. So I have something else to share, which is, and by the way, shout out to Mike Colangelo. I'm not sure how to say your name, so I'm sorry if I mangled that. Colangelo, Mike Colangelo on Twitter. It's at Mike Colangelo. There are some people that are true believers that I can get along with, and Mike posts a lot of great stuff. And I hate that I do this, but I go to the believers and see the clips that they're sharing to support their arguments, and then I say, no, that doesn't really support the whole carnival and circus here. No, but he hasn't blocked me on Twitter, so good for him. Unlike other people who smell like vagina, like Brandon Fugel. Hold on one second. Yeah, when I got the note, when I went to Brandon Fugel's Twitter for something and realized that he had blocked me, that's exactly what I thought. I thought, I smell vagina, Brandon Fugel. I smell vagina, Brandon Fugel. I definitely smell vagina. You had to block me because I asked some questions. Is he an intellectual weakling? Is he an intellectual coward? Is his so-called evidence of paranormal activity at the biggest paranormal activity hotspot on Earth so weak he cannot withstand questions? Well, apparently so, because he blocked me. But it is what it is. I've learned to not care. I take it as a badge of honor. That means I asked a question he didn't want to answer. So it is what it is. But here, this is interesting. Because Brandon Fugel in this clip is saying that after Skinwalker Ranch season 4, you're going to need therapy, right? Are they upping their grift? And here's something I noticed. We talked about the overpromise and underdeliver that people do, right? People overpromise and they underdeliver. That's what you got to do when you're selling paranormal BS. You have to hype it out the wazoo. These guys hype bugs flying in front of a camera as, oh my God, an orb. Oh my God, paranormal activity. It's a goddamn bug, Brandon Fugel. And the fact that this clown has 2 scientists who can't stand up, I think that there is I want to mention that I think that there is a strange group dynamic going on with some of these guys involved in this Skinwalker scam. And that is that they all want to find paranormal activity. They all have a vested financial interest in finding paranormal activity to show people so that they can keep those checks coming in. But when pressed to show us your best evidence by Stephen Greenstreet and other journalists, they've got videos of nothing. Bugs. One looked like a lightning bug to me. And, I have a cabin. I film lightning bugs all the time. I'm pretty sure that one video that they think is something extraordinary is a lightning bug. The other one appeared to be silkworms or something. Unexplainable, sure, but not definitively paranormal. And the fact that he has two scientists that won't stand up and say, that's bugs, Brandon Fugel. We can't use it. It's only bugs. But no one has any integrity that's working with or for him because they all have that financial motive. We got to find paranormal stuff. And if you happen to get a bug fly by a camera that looks weird, don't say it's not bugs. He's got two scientists. You can clearly see some of this shit is bugs. Why doesn't one of the scientists stand up and say, this is bugs? Because they're getting paid to play Ghostbusters and pretend that they're seeing paranormal activity at that place. I don't believe they are. I don't believe that they're seeing paranormal anything. There's just no evidence for it. But interestingly, in the midst of all of this controversy hitting Skinwalker, Brandon Fugel is now going to do the overpromise and likely the underdeliver. And kicking the can. Oh, you want evidence now? Just wait until next season of Skinwalker Ranch. The Secret. Yeah. Just wait until next season and you're going to need therapy. It's going to be so crazy. So this is Mr. Fugel now promising huge things, I suppose, in the next season.
All right. After season 4, some of you may need therapy, and I'm sorry. I'm serious. It's going to really people up. Shoot.
And who's sitting next to him? Listen, birds of a feather apply here. That's Leslie Keene, who wrote a completely and totally false, factually inaccurate article to sell the whole TTSA Lou Elizondo scam. And she's sitting right next to the guy who I believe is running the Skinwalker scam. Birds of a feather. Why would you associate with or work with somebody who was provably manipulating the public, selling provably fake, false information on purpose? Why would you do that, Brandon Fugel, if you want people to believe that your Skinwalker Ranch claims are credible? Why would you sit next to somebody that wrote a completely and totally fake New York Times article claiming all kinds of things that turned out to be 100% factually inaccurate, right? All of these grifters grift together. That's how this works. And they all reinforce each other's delusions. And here Leslie Keene will help him sell his bullshit.
This is like, I'm okay to say that. It's been a long week.
Yeah, that's the best plug you can give for season 4.
I can't wait. I really can't wait. And I can't wait for the skeptics to see what we have to unveil. I've just been like a caged animal.
You have to get them to watch it. That's the problem.
To bite my tongue so much online because I'm like, gosh, if you people only knew.
Yeah, if we only knew, right? So why didn't he show that information or that stuff when he was asked by Stephen Greenstreet to see the best evidence? Oh, because he had to kick the can, right? You have to kick the can down the road. Oh, just hold on. Buckle up, because next season's going to be crazy. Great. I look forward to seeing that. And I, for one, will be one of the skeptics watching that. And I will be happy to sort of analyze whatever they have. and I'm sure others will, including Mick West and others, of course. Yeah, so that's all we've got for you on the Skinwalker scam. And we're going to take a very, very short break and be back with our piece on Bob Lazar, Space Pimp Exposed. I was so proud. I was so happy to see that our friend, alien scientist Jeremy Rise, got on Concrete Podcast. And on that podcast, he got to drop some bombs on Bob Lazar believers. And normally I don't like sort of clickbaity titles, but in this case it worked. They titled it Explosive New Bob Lazar Evidence, which is interesting because none of the evidence that Jeremy Rise presented was new. It was just new that somebody would listen, like a big podcast would listen to all of this evidence that Bob Lazar is a fraud. That has been out there for many, many months. So we want to take a moment to remind everyone how you can support the show. We'll be right back with our coverage of Bob Lazar, Space Pimp Exposed.
Thanks for being here. This is Truthseekers with your host, Stephen Campion. Please rate, like, and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truthseekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat group during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truthseekers. Truthseekers.
All right. So our friend Jeremy Rise, alien scientist, fighting a good fight for a long time, as long as me, trying to scream from the rooftops and tell people there's an awful lot of evidence that Bob Lazar is a convicted space pimp, convicted pimp who ran a whorehouse and was sort of not what all the people selling that story claimed that he was. So interestingly, Jeremy Rise got a chance to be on Concrete Podcast, who usually hosts all the fraudsters and people selling their UFO stories. And to be quite honest, I think that Concrete Podcast tries to do a good job. They just had bad personnel. You know, they got the wrong people to come on their show and talk about UFOs. I'm happy. I was happy to see that they got Jeremy because, you know, Jeremy did a great job breaking down a great deal of the evidence that Bob Lazar is not who people claim he was, and that the story is largely fake and a for-profit, motive-driven, you know, it's a cash cow. That's what it is. It is a opportunity for people to make money. So Jeremy Rise, to his credit, he went all the way down to Florida, hopped on a plane to be on this podcast and talk about Bob Lazar. And good for him. I was happy to see him. quite honestly, you know, there's a few people that could do this. I'm one of them, and he's one of them. Unfortunately, because of my situation with my son, I don't get to travel very much. I got to be here to take care of him. I was just so happy to see that one very, very large podcast, I think they have 600,000 plus subscribers, hosted somebody that was telling the truth about Bob Lazar for a change, instead of all the people selling the lie story and the lie by omission story. So we're just going to put up my fair use banner. This is a transformative work. We're educating the public, and we'll be discussing and critiquing what we are playing. And this is also a transformative work, which also makes it coverable under fair use.
If it's easily classified information on scientific level, right, like the element 115 stuff. So that's the real big scientific thing that he supposedly came out with, and there's so many misconceptions about that as well that I'd like to spend a minute to clear up.
Okay.
So one is that, you know, elements are, you know, the element number is based on proton number. That's how many protons are in the nucleus. So hydrogen is number one. It has one proton and one electron. The electron's number balances the proton number, so that has a zero charge. They always like to be neutral. So this issue of the protons is just addition, man. So you just like element 115, you know, the periodic table goes up to a certain number, and then to just predict that it's going to go to higher numbers that we haven't created yet. I mean, this was figured out back in the 1960s by a guy named Glenn Seaborg, who worked at UC Berkeley, and he worked on a lot of the particle accelerator experiments that, you know, built the entire, you know, higher half of the periodic table. And well, it's interesting, you know, he wrote an article actually in Scientific American in 1969 and published it talking about element, you know, the higher elements and this so-called island of stability.
This is an important point because many people have credited Bob Lazar was the first person that talked about element 115. Not true. I have a chemistry book from the late 1970s, which includes element 115 on the periodic table, and it didn't exist then. But they just knew that eventually it would be synthesized or discovered. And here, Jeremy Rise, who has a physics degree and is aware of all these things, is correctly pointing out that somebody was writing about element 115 in the year 1969. So all these people that constantly claim, well, Bob Lazar must be telling the truth. He was the first person to talk about element 115. They are just wrong. And then he gets into Bob Lazar's educational background.
And the kind of documentation I would be looking for hasn't come out. So Bob Lazar, some more records of his educational background, which he claims to have these degrees, advanced degrees, and have gone to these schools.
Which there is evidence, right?
So the evidence came out, right? It's interesting because he had a court case in 1991, and on his court documents, he stated that he had his bachelor's degree was from Pacifica University, which is a correspondence university.
And what year do you say this?
It was shut down in the early 90s as being a degree mill. So this was like 91, I think, was the conviction. So it was like two years after he came out with the story.
So this place called Pacifica was selling degrees. Like
yeah,
selling. Okay,
that's where he put. So the court case is interesting too, because apparently, you know, he had, you know, become this whistleblower about this big top secret program that he was hired to be this senior staff physicist on.
Yeah, and here's where it gets interesting, because just to be clear, so everybody understands, Bob Lazar claimed to have degrees from MIT and Caltech, but in a court case, he claimed his undergraduate degree in those court documents was from Pacifica University, which is just a degree mill, a place that you buy a fake degree from. No way on God's green earth that either MIT or Caltech would accept a person into a master's program who had a fake purchased degree mill degree.
And that, you know, afterwards, he was, after, you know, 2 years later, he's running a brothel. He's literally running a brothel. That's what he gets. He wasn't running the brothel. He was, there was a madame who was running the brothel. It was called the Crystal Cove. And he actually got arrested for setting up a CCTV camera system in the apartment complex, and they were filming and blackmailing, customers of the brothel.
Is there proof that he tried to blackmail people?
It's a court case. He pleaded guilty to it. Yeah.
Oh.
So there you go. There's your prestigious scientist who, according to court documents, was arrested for filming the Johns at the whorehouse he ran and then blackmailing them with those videotapes. I guess maybe, hey, we could send this videotape of you banging this whore to your wife, or you could give us some extra money. And this is things he pled guilty to in the court case. It's in the court documents. To my knowledge, no one has gotten the complete and total court documents related to Bob Lazar's warehouse case. It's on my list of things to do.
Oh,
yeah, you can.
We're going to get him.
Look it up in Nevada. Yeah, you can look it up in Nevada. So it's there, and there's a video of it online, and there's even videos of George Knapp talking about the incident, how he's like, he just, brought this big scientist whistleblower out, and here goes the whole story because,
right.
and apparently it wasn't enough to make it go away. And a lot of people still don't know about that and that it happened. But
and it's also interesting to note that the person that dined out, apparently, George Knapp, is the one who called the police and made Bob Lazar turn himself in. At least that's what George Knapp has said in interviews. So isn't it great that George Knapp ratted out Bob Lazar for running a whorehouse? And according to George Knapp, the whorehouse was right on his block in his neighborhood that Bob Lazar was running.
The court documents from that case, he lists his degree his bachelor's degree was from Pacifica University, not MIT or Caltech. He doesn't say that. And he says that his he had some, I don't know, he said something about University of Cal Northridge. I got to look up the documents from that court case, but it's on there. You can look it up. There's a whole website, boblazardebunk.com, where people can get a lot of these documents and other stuff. And other researchers have done stuff on this too, including an account on Twitter called Signals Intel. And
there's not a lot of traction online with people that are trying to pick apart his story and doing it successfully until I became aware of you. Did I really start to notice some of these details?
Yeah, and that's the problem. And we come back to what I call the bigger bullhorn syndrome. Jeremy and I and others, Signals Intelligence and Luis Caetano and Victor and many people have done our very best to research Bob Lazar's claims, history, and the inconsistencies. And we put out our research, but the problem is, we've got Joe Rogan's podcast putting out the lies with millions and millions of subscribers. The bigger bullhorn wins. So largely, those of us who are doing the good work, the factual work, like Jeremy Rise and Signals Intelligence, and I would put us in that category. We've done a lot of work on the Bob Lazar story. It just gets lost in the wash of the, the clicks and views frenzy that some of these other podcasters are getting. Like Concrete here, 600,000 subscribers. So, I have less than 10,000 subscribers. You just can't break through with the bullhorn problem.
Because, people aren't looking for it, because the Bob Lazar story is such a fantastical story.
It's awesome. I mean, that's what got me into researching UFOs and black projects and thinking the government has this stuff. That and movies like Independence Day in 1997, where they have that scene where they go into the underground hangar and they say, "Oh, we got this from Roswell,"
So from the time you first learned about Bob, how long did it take for you to start to question everything?
I didn't start questioning it until I really started going on forums, like Above Top Secret and other forums, where I was really arguing in favor of the case with a lot of more knowledgeable researchers about it. And
and I think that's interesting that many of us that are very critical of the Bob Lazar story, we've all gone down the same path. Most of us loved and believed the story. Jeremy and I both grew up with the story, and I have said publicly, if I could pick one story from the land of UFO mythology to be true, it would be the Bob Lazar story. It's a fantastic story. Government scientist works on alien spacecraft. He comes out and blows the whistle on it. It's just unfortunate that he was never a scientist. He was essentially a grifter, a con artist, a scammer. And that is evidenced by the fact that right before he, first of all, somebody with master's degrees in physics doesn't run photo mats. Bob Lazar ran a 1-hour photo mat. And scientists of that caliber generally, to my knowledge, don't run whorehouses. The one person on Twitter, it's interesting, somebody on Twitter said, that's a stupid argument, Stephen, because scientists do bad things. And I said, find me another scientist that ran a whorehouse. And they did. So we know of at least 2 people that other guy was a real scientist, though, and he ran a whorehouse. So, but still, Bob Lazar, has been caught grifting, selling fireworks, making materials. He was in trouble for that. He was bankrupt right before he came out with his story. He lied about being a scientist at Los Alamos. He was just a technician. There's just the story falls apart under scrutiny.
They sent me to a lot of interesting links, which educated me about, background checks and Bob Lazar's timeline, that he borrowed a lot of money in his past, that he had a lot of debts. He also was apparently, he claimed that his clearance was revoked, right? For the purpose that he claims that his wife was having an affair with her airline instructor, and that's why they revoked his security clearance, and that was
because they thought it would be like psychologically traumatizing to him and it would affect his work.
That is absolutely ridiculous if you know the case, because he was friends with John Lear. I mean, he knew John Lear. He had met John Lear and was a friend of his. He had gone there. If you read the story, so there's 2 people that are left out of the story, and Jeremy Corbell.
Gene Huff and John Lear were left out of Jeremy Corbell's story.
Film, and I think that it's
probably
deceptive to not mention them or bring them into the story, because they're 2 of the most central figures in the Bob Lazar story, and that's John Lear and Gene Huff. And Gene Huff co-wrote the original Bob Lazar tapes. It says a film produced by, he helped produce it. So the original Bob Lazar tapes, the tape that started all this, was produced by Gene Huff.
Okay.
And in a radio interview that I have saved and I put on my channel, Gene Huff claims that he met Bob Lazar because Bob Lazar was running a photo processing business at the time in Las Vegas.
Which is, in my opinion, not something that somebody with 2 advanced master's degrees would be doing, but it is what it is.
And that's what he was listed as on court documents. He listed his occupation as a photo processor. So he had the means to fake that W-2 form and the ID badge. So those are the only 2 documents that Bob's produced in support of his case.
A W-2 form and an ID badge.
Yeah. So the W-2 form has his first wife's social security number on it.
Yeah, the W-2 is completely and totally fake, and I'm not going to argue that point with anybody. Some people have said, oh no, it can't be fake for this reason or that reason. A W-2 form that doesn't have the right social security number on it is fake by definition. That's the only data point we need to look at. Also, interesting that Jeremy mentions that Bob Lazar lost his security clearance because his wife was cheating on him. But it should be noted that through recent revelations by Signals Intelligence, it is very clear that Bob Lazar would never, ever have been given a security clearance. And why is that? It's because that wife of his was a convicted murderer with very strong ties to organized crime in the form of Hell's Angels. This is 1989. It's the height of the Cold War. You do not, you cannot, you will not give a person whose wife is a convicted murderer with very strong ties to organized crime top secret clearance. Now, this is my opinion, but it is an informed opinion because I spoke with many different people who have verifiably now have or formerly had secret clearance for secret projects with the government or with government contractors. For those that don't know, to get that clearance, they literally knock on your door and talk to your neighbors. They do this full background check and investigations. Giving a person whose wife is a convicted murderer with very strong ties to organized crime a top secret security clearance would be a huge security risk. They wouldn't do it. And you can talk to anybody who is familiar with the world of classified projects, ask them what they think. Let me know, email me, but I haven't found anybody who says, yes, they would give a top secret clearance to a man who has a wife who's a convicted murderer with very strong ties to organized crime in the form of the Hells Angels. It just wouldn't happen.
We found that was
Really?
the weirdest thing. So that was definitely faked. He didn't even put his own social security. He put his first wife's social security number on the damn thing, and then they changed it in other versions. But we have the original that he gave, and it has his first wife's social security number on it, which he was married to a woman named Carol Nadine Esslinger, or Carol Nadine Strong. She was 10 years older than him. They married in, I think, like 78 or 79, moved to and he was still married with her, I believe, when he moved from California to Los Alamos. But sometime in the middle of that is when he met this other younger girl, Jackie, which her real name's Tracy. They call her Jackie, but he married this. He started hanging out with this younger girl. And apparently married her, but he didn't get a real marriage certificate. He just like had a wedding.
Yeah. So besides being a person who ran a whorehouse, he's also a polygamist. Bob Lazar married one woman without divorcing the first one. He had 2 wives at one time. And very, very, very tragically, his first wife killed herself shortly after Bob Lazar married the second woman. She committed suicide.
And married her. Well, he was still married to the other woman. And then the other woman found out and was so upset by it, she allegedly committed suicide. And then this is all documented. And then Carol Nadine Strong, we looked up her history. The woman that he was married to at the time, he would have had these background checks and security clearances. So the government hired him to work on the most top secret project the U.S. has ever known. Then they would have obviously looked into this part of his background and found these holes in his story. I mean, these were issues that he had. So it looks more like he was having an affair with his wife, because he married 2 women at the same time, this younger girl, and then his older wife commits suicide. And then he ends up marrying the younger wife legally on paper a couple months later.
And his first wife allegedly committed suicide before he was hired to work at Site S4.
Yeah, this was before. This was
how early?
This was 1986.
Yeah, and then interestingly too, Bob Lazar and the second wife, just after his first wife commits suicide in their home, I believe Bob Lazar and his second wife moved into the same home.
Okay. So this was 2 years before. So 2 years prior, 2 or 3 years prior to him coming out with this story in 1989, right? So 1986 is when, he meets this younger girl, moves to Los Alamos, and then he breaks up with and breaks her heart, and she ends up committing suicide. Tailpipe in the garage. They found her in the car or whatever. I don't know if he's the one that found her or what the whole story is there, but it's certainly very, peculiar and bizarre and strange. And definitely a guy wouldn't have gotten a background check because his former wife was arrested, was involved with a Hell's Angel murder, according to some newspaper articles and stuff that we recently found from Las Vegas. So she was from Las Vegas and moved up there. Apparently she's connected with someone that worked at Fairchild Industries, and that's how Bob worked there out in California before he moved to Los Alamos. And
so correctly, Jeremy points out that the first wife was convicted in a murder case involving the Hell's Angels previous to Bob coming out with his story.
Knew and a bunch of other guys like Jim Tagliani, who worked at Tonopah Test Range, and Jim Tagliani knew about S4.
Who is Jim Tagliani?
He was one of Bob Lazar's friends. So he's a guy that was friends with Bob Lazar and John Lear and all them, and he worked out at Tonopah Test Range at a real place called Site 4. There's a difference. There's a real Site 4 at Tonopah Test Range.
Yeah, and to the best of my knowledge, the Site 4 at Tonopah Test Range is a radar station.
That's Area 52.
Okay.
So Area 51's in Nevada, up near Las Vegas.
Mhm.
And if you go like west from Area 51, you'll fly right over Tonopah on your way to Edwards Air Force Base. And
that was called Site 4.
There was a section out there called Site 4, and it was the ECCM, which is electronic countermeasures radar setup. So they would build mock enemy radar systems like Russian radar, and then they would figure out how to spoof or jam those radar systems.
And that, my friends, is where Bob Lazar got the name S4 from. His very good friend, Mr. Tagliani, who worked at the Tonopah Test Range at the real S4, which is a radar station.
Where it's the frequencies or the signals and stuff. And this was the origins of the stealth days where they were working on.
Right.
I mean, the stealth program was a little bit before that, but the early 80s, but they were still doing a lot of stealth research and stuff out there at the time, which is also interesting because there was another Site 4 that we found, which was at Plant 42 in Palmdale, which is where they made the B-2 Spirit bombers.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, at least he doesn't have as many ads as David Wilcock. Hold on one second. We'll share that again. I apologize. There we go.
There's two classified sites named S4 or Site 4, one at Tonopah, one at Palmdale, where they're building the B-2. And then Bob comes out with this fantastic story about this place called Site 4, where they're reverse engineering alien, saucers and stuff. And that's the same story that, again, John Lear told a year before on George Knapp. So it's kind of interesting. You have this timeline where Bob Lazar the wife thing, he moves to Los Alamos, he's living there, and then he meets this new girlfriend. Something happens at Los Alamos. He apparently he did work at Los Alamos, so we've been able to confirm that, right? But he only worked at Los Alamos for like 8 months that we can figure out. And apparently he was fired from Los Alamos for using company equipment to work on his jet car, which he was already in. There was a Monitor article from Los Alamos from 1982.
That's the article that he claimed he was a physicist at Los Alamos. And we now know that Bob Lazar was never a physicist or scientist at Los Alamos. He was a low-level technician. And this has been confirmed by on-the-record sources that were Bob Lazar's supervisors while he worked there.
On the jet car article, so he was in Los Alamos with his jet car in 1982 doing stuff. So you can get a little bit a scope of the time period. And if you really chase down the whole timeline, there's no room for him to have gotten the degrees. There's no evidence that he got the degrees. And then him listing on the court documents that he didn't really have the degrees. He had a Pacifica University, which is like a mail order, fake degree. And
that's possibly a mail order degree. They were doing that. It doesn't necessarily mean he paid for it. There's no proof he actually paid them, right?
So, I mean, you could, by some stretch of an imagination, just assume that the government, just tried to put a bunch of dirt on this guy and made up all this stuff, that it's all made up by the government.
Yeah, and I don't believe that. The Men in Black explanation falls apart under scrutiny.
Right. So then at the end of the day, if you just get rid of all the circumstantial evidence about, that shows that the guy may not be who he says he is, may have been involved with, people like John Lear, who's selling the same story on George Knapp, getting tons of views on it. So, here's Bob Lazar working for the photo processing company for Gene Huff. And Gene Huff says that the first time they met John Lear, that Bob Lazar went over there to do an appraisal on John's house. And they went to do an appraisal because Gene Huff ran an appraisal business, and he was working. That's how he met Bob Lazar, because he was his photo guy. So Bob Lazar would go there, take the pictures, process the photos, build and do the ads for the the paper and stuff.
Real estate, yeah, for the real estate appraisals that he did.
And that he would hold a tape measure. And this was when supposedly before This is the guy they hired to be the senior staff physicist to work on, to figure out how this other thing that our top scientists couldn't figure out how this reactor worked. So we had to bring in this guy to figure this out.
But
does it make sense? Does that make sense?
But it's true though. This guy, first of all, the first time Bob, from what I understand, the first time he met with George Knapp and they did those interviews, like he had to do a lot of convincing to get him to do that.
Yeah.
And then he tells the story of how he actually interviewed him, did this whole story. And before he published it, Bob like called him and said, no, I don't want to do it. Like he had a change of heart. He didn't want to publish it, didn't want to go live with it. And George Knapp said that he like wrestled with him over the tapes or something. Like he described some sort of like a physical altercation. We had to grab it from Bob and fucking published it.
Yeah, they dramaed it up. Like, oh yeah, I almost grabbed the tape from him.
So Bob, like, and so what is there to gain for him? He hasn't made any money off this.
He hasn't?
That's what he claims. He's never made any money off of it. That's what he says.
They sold the Bob Lazar tapes back in the back of UFO magazines and stuff for $30 a pop back in the 90s. And I know they sold quite a bit of them. So I know that he made at least some money off it. I've heard that, Jeremy Corbell didn't make what he thought he would, but he made some decent money off the film that he put out. And I've heard that he paid, Bob's wife or some back channel, like, so Bob actually did get paid for that. But I have no evidence to confirm that, but I would love to, do some more investigation into that and find out. Cause it'd be really.
And when we talk about this situation, this is important too. You notice how the Concrete podcast host repeated the talking point. This is a talking point of Bob Lazar supporters. Well, Bob Lazar never made any money from this. Bull. Bob Lazar tried to cash in on this story from the very beginning. First of all, he created a company to market a VHS tape. It's called Excerpts from the Government Bible. And it's Bob Lazar explaining his time at this super secret advanced research facility where they were back engineering alien spacecraft. And he explains how the alien spacecrafts flew and all this stuff. And it was produced by Gene Huff and Bob Lazar, and it was sold in the back of science magazines and UFO magazines and like Strange Tales magazines and things like that. I am aware that it was in some science magazine my father had. I bought one of those tapes, and Bob Lazar and Gene Huff owe me $30 because the whole story is fake. So they scammed children literally for $30 a piece. Not just children, but I'm sure a lot of underage kids like me interested in the story saw the ad in the magazine like I did. I actually had to get my father to give me a check to send away for it and pay for shipping, right? I used my paper route money, as I recall, to order the Bob Lazar tape. That's the first cash in, and they sold thousands and thousands of those tapes, I'm told by a source. Not sure if that's entirely accurate. Next, Bob Lazar cashes in with Testers Model Corporation. Now, you may recall that we called Testers Model Corporation, now owned by Rust-Oleum Paint Company, to try to get an accurate depiction of how much money Bob Lazar made. Pardon me, COVID. So we try to contact them to find out how much money Bob Lazar was paid. Now, Michael Schratt had some information that Bob Lazar got a big upfront payment from Testers Model Corporation and then got a royalty for each of the models of the flying saucer that Testers Model Corporation sold. And I'm just remembering the early 90s. In the early 90s, if you went into any toy shop, any hobby shop, any model shop, train shop, there on the shelf would be the Bob Lazar S4 flying saucer model. And I'm told they sold millions of them from a former employee of Testers Model Corporation. So Bob Lazar cashed in big time on that, made a ton of money from those Testers models of the so-called flying saucer he worked on. After that, Gene Huff and him both tried to cash in and get a Hollywood screenplay produced. Bob Lazar was also paid for his appearances in many 1990s documentaries about aliens, Area 51, and UFOs. There's also a famous case where a Japanese production company paid him tens of thousands of dollars to come to Japan and film, and he apparently never showed up, but kept their money, allegedly. During the anniversary event, there was a special event with George Knapp and Bob Lazar. I think it was the 25th anniversary or something like that of the Bob Lazar story. And I was told that he got $10,000 for that. Bob Lazar right now is selling autographed drawings of flying saucers on his website. He's selling mugs, Element 115, the sport model, or whatever. He's been selling UFO related merchandise on his website since the beginning of his website. So this talking point that Bob Lazar never made any money, it absolutely falls apart under scrutiny. And Bob Lazar has cashed in every chance that he got. So do not believe, this is the truth. Here's the money that Bob Lazar has made all this time. And also recently, Bob Lazar got a huge payout for the Bob Lazar book. Who paid him for that? TTSA and Tom DeLonge. I'm told it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 advance on the book, which I cannot confirm because I only got one source who told me that, and I'm not quite 100% sure I trust that source. But interestingly, right after Bob Lazar got the check for the book deal, he moved his home and his business to a almost $500,000 property in another state. So the evidence is there that Bob Lazar has been making huge amounts of money on his story for this whole past 30 years. The fallacy that he doesn't make any money is a complete and total lie.
Easy for someone to just order,
and
a whole bunch of
Jeremy's talking about right now is that Jeremy Corbell and Bob Lazar claimed that Bob was not paid for the Jeremy Corbell documentary. But a lot of people have speculated that his wife got paid, or there was some back channel way that Bob got his money.
stuff from Bob's business, United Nuclear, right? It would be real easy for Jeremy Corbell to order, $200,000 worth of scientific equipment from United Nuclear, and then United Nuclear just simply not deliver the equipment. There's other ways to wash that money, and Bob has the means and knows how. I mean, he started United Nuclear because he ran a fireworks show called Desert Blast, where they were basically, invite a bunch of people and sell tickets to go watch, these massive fireworks and bomb shows out in the middle of the desert where they'd blow up all kinds of stuff. And that was during the days when, it was getting harder. You used to be able to order ammonium nitrate and other stuff right in the mail, and they started putting a stop to that. So you had to be a registered company in order to order those chemicals and get them. So Bob Lazar created United Nuclear and started, ordering those chemicals and selling them. So he started out the whole thing selling and they have actually got kicked out of Las Vegas because they were, selling all this glassware, and it was, winding up in all these meth labs all over Vegas, and they kicked him out of Vegas and he had to move the company to Michigan.
Interestingly, I have heard from several people that Bob Lazar is the largest supplier of chemistry glassware in the United States. And many people, including Solar Marshall, have claimed that if you got a meth lab, you probably got your glassware from Bob Lazar. Now, I can't confirm that, but that's interesting. Mr. Scientist is selling meth labs glassware to produce meth with. And by the way, just to be clear, meth labs have to get those glass vials and beakers and all that stuff somewhere. Bob Lazar owns a company that sells that stuff, to the best of my knowledge, and I can't confirm. But this Bob Lazar certainly supplies chemistry equipment to anybody that has the money.
He lists his bachelor's degree was from Pacifica University, not MIT or Caltech. He doesn't say that. And he says that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I lost my place here. I apologize.
You know,
And he hasn't done any podcast other than Joe Rogan's podcast.
well, it's interesting because like it's almost like why would he pick? He hasn't done any documentaries either, besides one with Jeremy Corbell. So
Right,
why
exactly.
would he? Why would he only work with Jeremy Corbell or only work with Joe Rogan?
I would imagine
And-
because he doesn't want the attention, and he's got people like Joe who are fascinated by the topic, and he's got people like Jeremy who are also fascinated by the topic, who are pushing this guy to do this. Like, come on, do this. He's like, no, I don't want anything to do with it. You could tell when he went on Joe's podcast, he was like very hesitant. He had a fucking headache, whatever. And it's not like he was happy to be there. Hey, happy to be here, Joe.
He had the migraine excuse for why I can't remember stuff.
But let's talk about fucking aliens. He seemed like he didn't want to be there.
It also seemed like Jeremy was his like handler throughout the whole. All he needs to do is get on a show with a guy like me instead of someone who doesn't know anything about the case. As long as he's talking to people who don't know anything about the case or people who want to believe in the case and support the case without question, like Jeremy Corbell, convinced that it's real, and that guys like me are part of this big organization to like shut down the truth. And it's like, well, what's the truth, man? What physics do you have? Well,
Jeremy Corbell and Joe Rogan are pretty much true believers. They really want to believe Bob. So that's an important point. Bob Lazar does not do interviews with people who are familiar with the case. And to be quite honest with you, I have often thought that Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, and Bob Lazar's nightmare is going on a show and getting gotcha'd, right? Like, let's say, for example, that Joe Rogan did another podcast with Bob Lazar, Jeremy Corbell, and George Knapp. And then Jeremy Corbell said, oh, we have a couple other guests joining us. And out would walk me and Jeremy Rise. Oh, I have a fantasy of this happening. Because either of us, either Jeremy or I, could absolutely, completely destroy George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, and Bob Lazar in a debate about the truthfulness of this entire mythology that they have created. They will never do that. And that is something that we should think about. We should examine, why is it that Bob Lazar, Jeremy Corbell, and George Knapp will only do interviews with people who are friendly and supportive of their narrative? Why will they not do a story and debate somebody who is familiar with the case and all of the various inconsistencies throughout the past 30 years? They will never do that. But this is pretty close. Jeremy Rise, the alien scientist, get him, man. He's on a podcast with 600,000 subscribers, breaking it all down. And guess what? This is going to get to Joe Rogan. This is going to get to lots and lots of people are going to hear this interview. That's why I was so happy to hear Jeremy doing this. And I want to thank him for doing it, because he had to fly down to Florida and everything, but he probably was like, nope, I'm going to, whatever I have to do.
Real senior staff physicists. So I can show you what a real senior staff physicist looks like and compare that to Bob Lazar. And I can show you what real physics programs and real SAPs and the sort of research and what it looks like. Because I've studied these things, and I've, interviewed the people who worked on them. We've had them on my podcast. So I tend to question guys like Bob Lazar, and especially that's one of the main things is the education, the fact that he lie about being a physicist and having these credentials and then not being able to back it up is the biggest thing to me. And I don't,
when he's on these shows and on the like these tapes and these interviews, is there any red flags in his language about physics?
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Yeah, well, I'm sure if any physicist who's listened to Bob Lazar talk knows that this guy is not like a real physicist. He's not, he's not doing, real equation. It's some of the most basic, physics stuff, and then he'll throw in a bunch of other stuff like the gravity A wave and B wave idea. I've had some people on the podcast that have tried to analyze that in different, ways. But again, there's no core physics there. And when you talk about anti-gravity, right, first off, you can't have anti-gravity without negative mass.
Yeah, and by the way, I have myself personally, every time I meet somebody that's a real physicist, I try to get them to talk to me about Bob Lazar science. And so far, every physicist that I have ever spoken to about Bob Lazar, I've sent them clips and things of him talking about how this so-called science, which is really, it's Bob Lazar's talking points are essentially like that fake science fiction science gobbledygook that they put on Star Trek, like it's not real science. And I have tried, and every physicist that I've ever gotten to agree to talk to me about this listened to Bob Lazar and said, this guy's not a scientist. And by the way, Jeremy has a real degree in physics. And also, by the way, Jeremy is incredibly strong in math. And that's the mark of a science guy, to me. And by the way, I have a background in computer science. So, I'm pretty strong in math, pretty strong. But Jeremy blows me away with his knowledge of advanced equations. When you see, as soon as letters start getting entered in, but my point is that Jeremy is a real physicist. He has a degree in physics. And he is saying that Bob Lazar's science is nonsensical ramblings. It's not real. There's no core physics there that are based in reality. And that is because Bob Lazar is essentially telling a science fiction story. And he's filling in the blanks with nonsense. By the way, we want to thank Sunny Biatch 1111 for kind and generous $9.99. Says, put this in the fund for the inner child, Stephen, getting ripped off from that 80s Lazar con. All right. Listen, you guys, I got conned for $35, including shipping, when I was a child. But now I'll feel somewhat better because now Sunny Biatch has contributed $10. So Bob Lazar only owes me $25 at this point. We'll see if we can't make up the difference. I thank you. My inner child feels less like I got ripped off. And thank you, Sunny Biatch, for your kindness, generosity, and support of the show. I think that's the first time I've seen a super chat from you. If not, I apologize. We're always glad to see new supporters throwing some money in the till. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and helping us to praise the cash and get over childhood trauma of getting ripped off by Bob Lazar, the space pimp.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Thank you for your kindness. We appreciate that. And I'm going to check in and just make sure while we're listening here that I didn't miss anything else. Oh, my point was, the reason that I love and respect Jeremy and his stance on the Bob Lazar case is that he's a real physicist. A real physicist would know a fake physicist. Ask yourself this. Whatever you do in your job, whether you're a real estate person or an accountant, a computer science guy, an IT guy, maybe you're, a carpenter. Wouldn't you be able to spot instantly somebody who wasn't a real person that also does your profession? I think you would. I can spot a fake computer science person. All I have to do is ask them, 5 questions. And based on their answers, I could tell that they were faking being a computer science person or an IT person, right? Jeremy, similarly, he's got a real physics degree. He can tell that Bob Lazar is full crap.
You need to have negative mass. If you're not producing negative mass, then you're not producing anti-gravity. And what he has is the most massive element you have. So he's not producing negative mass. He's producing, super mass. So it's the opposite direction. It's kind of like a misdirection in all fronts. I feel like it's intentional disinformation that was put out. It's almost like, why was John Lear telling this story, and then Bob Lazar suddenly meets John Lear and then gets hired to go work out there, despite that he knows John Lear. And then as soon as he gets working out there, what does he do? He turns and goes blabs to his friends and brings them up on the mountain, with up to the peak,
Yeah, and this is very important. It's very important that when we recognize the timeline of Bob Lazar, a year before Bob Lazar came out with his story, and a significant amount of time, I think 6 months or more, before he meets John Lear. John Lear is on a Sunday morning talk show on local Las Vegas television with George Knapp. I think it was called On the Record, telling essentially the same story or a similar story. There's this secret base on Area 51. They've got alien spacecraft and they're trying to back engineer them. And then magically, Bob Lazar meets John Lear and then somehow gets hired to work for the very program that John Lear was just talking about a year beforehand. No, I don't think so. Also worthy of note is that Jeremy mentioned Gene Huff and Bob Lazar meeting John Lear doing a real estate appraisal. And John Lear traded these guys copies of all of his UFO stuff for that real estate appraisal. So right before Bob Lazar comes out with his story, he gets all of the Billy Meyer material, and his spaceship looks almost exact to the Billy Meyer spaceship. And some of the aspects of the propulsion system and how it worked, including an antimatter generator, was described in those documents that John Lear gave Gene Huff and Bob Lazar. So I call bull.
Because that's what they did. Apparently they brought him up to the peak, and that's when, he got the calls and they revoked his clearance and stopped it. But apparently he up at the peak, what they were filming was either Janet flights.
I just made this.
Let's fix that again. Sorry, friends. We're going to do a few more minutes of this. 1 second. There we go. Ah, I did it again. Oh, let's get to the part about Mike Thigpen.
Interviews. Is there any?
Oh, wait a minute. There we go.
Gets hired to go work out there, despite that he knows John Lear. And then as soon as he gets working out there, what does he do? He turns and goes and blabs to his friends and brings them up on the mountain, with up to the peak, because that's what they did. Apparently they brought him up to the peak, and that's when, he got the calls and they revoked his clearance and stopped it. But apparently he up at the peak, what they were filming was either Janet flights, the incoming, airline flights coming into the base, or they were filming some of the early Star Wars SDI program tests on these plasma and laser induced plasma technologies. And they have proton beams and other types of beams that they could generate balls of plasma in the sky.
Right. I want to get into that. I want to talk a little bit more about this first. One of the things that I noticed, one of the links you sent me was a Medium article about one of the guys who ran security clearance for Bob at what was it supposed to be, Area 51 or S4? Apparently.
Yeah, the Thigpen story.
What was the guy's name again?
Right. So Jeremy Corbell put this whole thing out about this Mike Thigpen guy. He talked about him on the Joe Rogan podcast and touted him as this ultimate whistleblower, proof that, Bob Lazar really worked out at this place and got the security clearance. But honestly, when you do the security background check on Bob, he doesn't check out. None of that stuff's mentioned in any of this. No proof is given. No video. He didn't record the interview that he did with this guy. He didn't, record audio. He didn't.
Absolutely not.
He records himself in his apartment, sitting there with no shoes on for hours in his film, but he couldn't, just talking to George Knapp on the phone or Bob Lazar, but he couldn't have recorded that one conversation. That's way more important than any of those.
Yeah. So just to be clear, Jeremy Corbell claimed that the person who did Bob Lazar's security clearance confirmed that he did it and Bob Lazar's the real deal. But Jeremy Corbell offered no evidence or proof. And later, Mike Thigpen would say, I didn't say any of that. So Jeremy Corbell basically lied to everybody. He lied to everybody about Thigpen.
So who wrote this article? This is on Medium. The title is Bob Lazar, Mike Thigpen, and the Clearance Investigation.
This guy is Signals Intelligence, and I'm not actually sure what his real name is. It almost sounds like this guy Victor that I know. but I'm not sure if it's him.
So I want to figure out that there's a clip in here. Go scroll down. There's a excerpt from an interview with Mike Thigpen. Who does it say conducted this interview with Mike Thigpen? Is this the guy who wrote the article?
Yeah, so the guy who wrote the article actually, reached out to these people and found a lot of these people. So there's a lot of people that have been doing, their own background investigations on Bob Lazar. So they went out and actually found people who worked with him at Los Alamos. And people that worked with him, for all these things, and interviewed him and asked them everything they knew about the guy, just to try to get a whole big picture of it.
So this guy, I'm going to read a little part of this article. It says, I spoke with Mike Thigpen in August of 2021 to confirm Corbell's account of their conversations. When I asked if he had any recollection of Mr. Lazar or conducting a background investigation into him, Mike Thigpen said, it's possible I don't remember him. No, I only got knowledge of him where I recall it, after he got into the news. I did stop and pause and listen when they threw my name into his story. The author asks, you didn't remember Mr. Lazar? As far as you were aware, did you not conduct a background or clearance investigation on him? Thigpen, as far as I recall, I did so many of them. If I did his background, I'm not saying I did it all, but if I did, I don't recall.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So essentially, Jeremy Corbell basically lied and said that Thigpen confirmed that he remembered Bob Lazar. He remembered doing the background check. Then another researcher gets to Mike Thigpen who says, I don't recall. So I apologize. I was a little inaccurate. Mike Thigpen did not say, no, I never said that. But we can draw an inference here that Jeremy Corbell straight lied to everyone when he claimed that Mike Thigpen, who did the security clearance, remembered Bob Lazar and remembered him doing the security clearance. No, when Signals Intelligence got to Thigpen, he said, I don't recall. I don't recall Bob Lazar, but I do recall my name being thrown into his story.
The author says, did you not tell Mr. Corbell that you remembered Bob? Thigpen says, personally, no, I don't know Bob. I don't recall meeting him. If I told him I did, it was an error. I certainly didn't mean to say or imply that to Mr. Corbell. It should be noted that Mr. Thigpen readily agreed to allow this publication of this interview. Gene Huff, okay. Well, now play that little YouTube clip real quick where they're talking about Mike Thigpen. This is the guy, just to give people context. This is
play the clip where Corbell lies.
I think Joe Rogan's interview with the only one he did with Bob. I think.
So Mike Thigpen was the guy that did the.
Check out this liar.
He said he did.
Right.
And George Knapp, George didn't believe him. George put him through 4 polygraph tests, right? He tried to see, man, this is a big risk. It sounds interesting, but let's see if he's telling the truth.
Bob Lazar, that's another talking point, that he passed 4 lie detector tests. No, he didn't. And we have a whole video on that. It's called Bob Lazar's Lie Detector Lies Exposed. He did not pass 4 lie detector tests. Jeremy Corbell says he did. But that's a murky story. Bob Lazar failed the first one. I'm sorry, the first one was inconclusive, and I'm going off of memory. The first lie detector test was inconclusive, so then they got a new polygraph examiner. He failed the first one. The second one he passed. The third one he passed. It depends on which version of the story. But essentially, it would appear that George Knapp and Bob Lazar just kept taking lie detector tests for Bob Lazar until he passed some. That's not how this works. And even the person, Terry Tabernetti, who gave him, I think, 3 of the 4 tests, said that he gave him the first test and he was not doing well. He was indicating deception, which means he failed the lie detector test. But Jeremy Corbell loves to say he passed 4 lie detector tests, even though it's a complete and total bold-faced lie. And here we have Jeremy Corbell lying again. In the world claiming that this man doing the security clearance, then how come he doesn't recall that when another researcher contacts him? And how come Jeremy Corbell didn't record this interview? Just as Jeremy said, it would be hugely important to prove the Bob Lazar story. He didn't bother to record it.
One of the things was, Bob said there's a guy named Mike Thigpen. He did security clearances for the base, and that's a weird name. It's a very specific. For 30 years, George found this guy in this weird department that he didn't even know it was Mike Thigpen. The guy wouldn't talk to me, ghosted him, totally ghosted him for 30 years. Used Facebook and Google Image Match through his children. I was able to find him after 30 years. And I talked to him 3 times on the phone. He lives on the East Coast. He almost went on camera with me. Confirmed that he did security clearances for the base in 1989. Confirmed he remembers Bob Lazar.
Yeah, confirmed he
Yeah, well,
remembers
it's
Bob Lazar. Until somebody else gets to that guy who says, I don't remember Bob Lazar. You see the problem with Corbell and the lies that he pushes? They fall apart under scrutiny. I believe that Jeremy Corbell was bluffing here. I think it was a huge bluff. He may have found him and talked to him, but he didn't think anybody else would find him and talk to him.
Interesting that there's no evidence provided for that, and there's other guys that talked to him that didn't get that story. And again, I've done my own background investigation on him, and I just don't think he's the kind of guy that would work out at a place like this. So let's compare him with someone that did. Look up Dr. Bernard Haisch, H-A-I-S-C-H.
Okay, here's one more thing as well. One of the biggest things that I believe that have been confirmed was Bob describes that hand scanner.
Oh, God. All right, we're done. Yeah, the hand scanner that was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, years before Bob came out with his story. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jeremy Corbell is on record saying that was his favorite movie as well. So after 30 years, Jeremy Corbell overpromised and underdelivered, said there would be all this new evidence, and we're dropping bombs on these skeptics, and we're going to prove Bob Lazar's story is true with all this evidence and this and that. And it turns out the only evidence they had was Bob Lazar once described a hand scanner. And in the film, Jeremy shows him a picture of a hand scanner and says, is that the hand scanner? And Bob Lazar says, yeah, that's the hand scanner. Garbage, absolutely garbage. That is not evidence of anything. And by the way, those scanners were in a bunch of different science magazines all over the world of science for years. A science nerd who reads science magazines would have heard about these hand scanners. That's not evidence. So we're going to call it here. We're coming up on 3 hours. But I want to congratulate and thank Jeremy Rise, alien scientist, for doing this. It was an amazing interview. And I hope that soon Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp and Bob Lazar are going to be called on the carpet, and they're going to have to prove that the story is true, or they need to stop collecting millions and millions of dollars selling a fake story as a true story. And let's examine another thing for a moment, shall we? Why is it? I don't understand this, and it bothers me. A lot of things about the Bob Lazar story bother me, but one specifically really bothers me. And that is this. If you were the person who has made millions and millions of dollars selling a story and telling people this is a true story, why would you not address all of the evidence that the story is fake? Why would you completely and totally ignore all that evidence, withhold it from your audience while you're selling the story? This lie by omission, we've talked about it before. The Bob Lazar story only works because of the lie by omission. They specifically don't give you all of this information that Jeremy or I have given you. They don't do it. They will not give you the evidence that indicates Bob Lazar is a convicted pimp, fake scientist, liar with a fake education who was bankrupt, didn't have time to even go to school to get these degrees, lied about being a scientist at Los Alamos, lied about stepping foot on Area 51. Because the other information that we have that is just as compelling as some of the evidence that Jeremy presented on this podcast is that a verified on-the-record Area 51 security guard said he checked the logs. You have to be logged in and out of Area 51. Bob Lazar, according to that Area 51 security guard, who's on the record statements, he's not an anonymous source like Corbell's and Knapp's sources. he said Bob Lazar never stepped foot on the base. And he also drove out to the so-called S4 location. Nothing there. Nothing but sand and rocks. No guard shack, no road, no hangars. He went right up to the mountain. There was nothing there. Why doesn't George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell address that? That's an important point. The whole story is Bob Lazar flew into Area 51 and then he was taken to this other base. The base is fake. There is no S4 at that location. And additionally, Bob Lazar would have had to have been in the logs for coming in or out of Area 51. He was not. And by the way, that Area 51 security guard even mentions in the interview we presented with Victor that he called George Knapp and said, you better be careful with this guy. He's lying to you. He's never worked at Area 51. I'm a security guard here. I checked all the logs as soon as you did your broadcast. The first broadcast mentioning Bob Lazar by name, we checked all the logs. He's not on any of them. Now, I know, get the Men in Black explanation ready. Why would George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell not address that blaring bit of evidence that the entire Bob Lazar story is fake? If he never flew in or out of Area 51, he couldn't have worked at Area 51. George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell will not address that. They also don't address the fact that Bob Lazar is a liar. He was never a physicist, let alone a senior staff level physicist at Los Alamos. And there is an overwhelming mountain of evidence for that. Signals Intelligence got to Bob Lazar's former supervisors at Los Alamos, who all confirmed that Bob Lazar was a low-level technician. He never was a scientist there. He was the kind of guy that got you, a new keyboard in the lab if you spilled coffee on it, or ran wires for you, network cables. He was a low-level technician. He is not now, nor has he ever been a scientist. So essentially, what is happening here is that, George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell they've made millions of dollars pushing a convicted space pimp. He's a convicted pimp. He's never been a scientist, not now, not ever. He lied multiple times. But what George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell do is they carefully construct a false reality. And that is what they are selling you. They are selling you this false reality where this convicted pimp, bankrupt liar, whose wife was a convicted murderer and a criminal who hung out with the Hells Angels, they're selling you a completely, totally false created reality where that same guy was a senior staff level physicist who the government called in to figure out these alien flying saucers. No, I don't think so. I want to thank every one of you for joining us. I want to thank our kind and generous benefactors, you Patreon supporters, you PayPal donators, you super chatters, super sticker purchasers, super thanks people who actually send money while watching replays, not during the live show. Imagine that. Very, very kind of all of you. And we want to thank David for a kind and generous $6 PayPal pledge as well. We want to thank you Twitch subscribers as well, and all you people purchasing Truthseekers merchandise. Here, I'll try to give you a better view. In the description of the video is 2 links, and both of those links will take you to a place where you can purchase Truthseekers quality merchandise. And this is just one of them. You can get a Truthseekers logo shirt. There's a lot of funny shirts on there. The first link is for Amazon, but Amazon only ships to certain countries. So if you try the Amazon link and it won't ship to your country, just come back over here and hit that Redbubble link. It's the second storefront. That ships internationally, but it takes a little longer. So what can I say, friends? That's all I got for you. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night.